little girl goes to school with her pet cat, you see, and the teacher says, "Excuse me, Mary, why have you brought your pet cat in?" She said, "Well, actually, it belongs to my mummy." She said, "Yes, but why have you brought it to school?" "Well, I passed Mummy and Daddy's bedroom, and I heard Daddy say, as soon as our kid goes to school, I'm going to eat your pussy."
I'm laughing. I've heard it before. That is a disgusting joke, isn't it? Yes.
Yeah, just a lot. Really wasn't expecting that. I'm like, oh, right.
Well, I wondered about it, but that is actually a very old joke. That I think is from the 70s or 80s. No, it might have been the 80s. Yes, I think it was my uncle's 1980s joke. But that is quite a good one. Now, tonight we got the Fockham Hall Intergalactic, and I can't read the rest of it. Was it Intergalactic
Transport Minister?
Transport Minister, excellent. So it's the Fockham Hall I like that. We got the Fockham Hall Intergalactic Transport Minister, and of course we got Nathan von Lucius, who is Minister of Propaganda. So excellent.
The only one,
Eric.
And also we've now got several diplomats around the world, ambassadors. We've got John in Siam. We got Patrick in Wisconsin, and now we have Monica, who's also an ambassador in where is she? Canada. So here we go. So any more ambassadors around the world? Oh yeah, and we got someone in East Grinstead as well. So
that's the other side of the universe as well, isn't
it? Right. So now who we got in? Now the first person. Oh, it's you, Paul. So you have a 2-finger salute. Anybody want?
I'll donate it to whoever wants it.
So okay, we got Tanya Jane, 1966. Looking forward to this. So are we. Yeah, that was good. Thanks.
We hope we are.
We got Good Evening Flat Earthlings. I wonder who that could be. Yes, and me, and I'm on it too. That's Paul. And then we got. Oh yes, it's a bit too late now. Just tonight's smutty gag may offend. Therefore, please place fingers in ears and blow raspberries to avoid hearing it. Too bleeding late, isn't it? Anyway, never mind. We've got Nathan Lucius. Hello, chat. Team Globetard signing in. So you're a Globetard.
I figured I'd get there before I get accused of being a Globetard. I am, in fact, a Globetard. No apologies. I'm proud to be a Globetard. There you go.
There we go. And then we got here. Hi, everyone. Marlene. Hello, Marlene. We've got Sue. Hello, Sue. And good evening, everyone. And we've got, we have considered not telling the smutty gag. Have we considered not telling the smutty gag? Yeah, I decided not to tell it after all. Did it go out? Marlene, I know. Then we've got Sixblade. Hello, Survival Steve. Hello.
Hey, Steve. Hello, mate.
The Earth is both flat and round. It doesn't really exist anyway, as it's all an illusion to confuse those still trapped in our simulated reality.
It's been projected from the moon, mate. So
I think it's square.
Wouldn't surprise me, actually. Well, there you
That's
go.
right. Then we've got JFC. Good evening, everyone. And who else we got here? We've got Mark Anthony. Hello, Mark. Looking forward to the discussion tonight. Oh, we got Kat. Hello, Kat. We're not forgetting Stephen, True Seeker. Hello.
Hey, Steve.
DJB2. That's good. Excellent. Now it says here, why can't I see Paul? Has he got his eyes closed and disappeared? No, he is identifying as a locomotive tonight. So that's the reason there's a picture of Paul there, you see.
Better than identifying as a, God, I was almost going to say TMS there. Nobody would have a clue what I was on about. An Arriva bus service. So, we can partially forgive him for that.
Well, that's right. What are we talking about tonight? And the foggiest idea. You'll find out a bit later. So leave it as a suspense, all right? Because I think the world is square. And Michael Bentine had a television show called Square. It's a Square World. But in the 60s and 70s, when he had that television show, square meant something different. It meant someone that's a bit sort of plain and a bit boring and not sort of hip and trendy, didn't it? So, and then we got here Barefoot Fondra says the moon is fake and gay. Is it? Oh well.
Why is it gay? Why? Unless you're on certain space cakes, no names mentioned, and it's a fat slag. But we don't go into that.
Well, when it sees the backside
moon
of
is
the
definitely not a fat slag. I apologise to the moon.
well, the moon comes up when it sees the backside of the Earth, doesn't it? Think about
I'm
it.
not answering that. I'm not answering that.
There's Deb. Hello, Deb. We did some healing for you. Can't stay. Still recovering and waiting to see if I can get to keep my toe on. Oh no. Just popped in to say don't forget to like and share. Thanks, Deb. And we'll do a little bit of healing for your toe because you dropped something on it. And there we go. And
was it a globe or an atlas or something?
there's a wheelie bin actually.
Oh,
Bloody
disappointing. Well, sorry about that. But
evening, lads and lasses. Jojo Gizmo. And Deb said, and subscribe if you haven't. Enjoy the show. Hello, Eric, Paul, and Nathan. Bless you,
hello.
Evening.
Deb. And I've heard some news today, which we got to send some peace and healing out to somebody else as well. And we've got here, what's this? Susmas Tyres Cotter. Evening, all.
Interesting.
An interesting
one.
name. That's a new one. Anyway, I could be all night in chat. We've got a lot in chat tonight. So I think we'll leave that one on for a while and we go back a little bit later. So please excuse me if I haven't announced you. And now,
if we went by the vote from the audience alone, you've lost Nathan.
yes,
Because there's at least 2 flat earthers in there.
What I've come to the truth is the truth, even if you're in a minority of one.
Indeed,
You're welcome.
it is.
There you go.
Well, tonight we're going to show that gentlemen can have a gentlemanly discussion. And I hope that the show ends with people thinking, well, Paul said some really interesting points and Nathan said some very interesting points. And it's to make people think.
And they're both wrong.
Because the world is square, actually, as I said. And now we're going to have, first of all, some healing before we start.
Oh, bloody hell. I'm turning me fan off.
He's disappeared for healing. Well, should we do it a bit later? Should we do the healing a bit later? Well, why not?
Let's do that later.
About halfway through, because by which time it might be indeed that healing music.
We'll have some healing music because we need some healing music for Chris the Gardener and also Deb. So halfway through, we'll have some healing music for that. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, first of all, the person who speaks first is always a disadvantage. Remember, there's no time limits. You can speak for as long as you want. Say it wherever you want, because we're gentlemen here. We can have a nice gentleman discussion. I will be as neutral can be, and I will back the first person on a little bit more because they are always at a disadvantage, because the first person to speak always is at a disadvantage. So who wants to go first? Shall we flick the imaginary coin?
Happy to start. I don't mind.
Well, I'm thinking as 90% of the chat seems to think that the Earth is flat, mate. You should probably start first, and then you get Chris's. Chris can defend you out. I mean, plus I've uploaded a presentation, so if anyone wants some graphics and stuff as we go along, I do apologise. It's taken me 3 hours to put this together today, and it's like 55 slides long. So what I will say is, if anyone wants any screenshots of the stuff that's in the presentation, I'm not going to read it all out. There's not going to be enough time. But if anyone would like specific points, referring to or graphics, just let me know and we'll go to that.
Well, before we go any further, Patrick. So, hello, Patrick. He said, "Evil is evil, even if everyone is doing it. Good is good, even if one person's doing it." I'm still trying to sort my bleeding headphones out, Patrick, because we can't get the right. Hang on. Let's do it in chat. Does anybody know where in the United Kingdom you can buy earphones that screw into plugs like that? Because I don't think you can get them. Yes.
Can you put that back on the screen, mate? I mean, you know, they say size doesn't matter, but that's a bit embarrassing. If we're being honest,
It is,
it's.
well, it's actually a condom, so
Well, I was thinking that, you know, the size most certainly does matter when it's that small.
But no,
There we
you,
go.
you get the ear defender, you know, the ones that for loud noises, but this has got a hole in the middle, so you can.
Well,
I
so,
just
so
stuck in the
it's so
headphone.
it's a useless contraceptive as well. Then, even though it's for tiny. Yeah. Anyway, moving
Well,
on.
I did try it, but it's a bit loose on me.
Too much information.
I need sleep now. It's sleepy time. It's the time for Nathan
Right.
von Lucius to go sleepies.
Right. So far away, Paul. Is
Right.
the
Yeah, go
Earth
on, go for
flat
it.
or round? I'll be neutral. So is it
I'm going
flat
to be
or
honest
round?
with you. I don't know what. No one can prove what it is that we're on. Is my starting point. But there's a lot of
Interesting.
common sense that comes into the thinking behind the flat Earth model and the things that link into it that are beyond just that subject. So, for example, we have in the English language, we have things like sea level. Okay.
Mhm.
Now, if it's curved, it can't be level. It's either level or it's curved. And water, as we know, if you've got a bottle of water there, look at it, it always sits level. So no matter what you do with that water, if you've got a bottle of water, you turn it upside down, no matter what shape that container is, the top of the water always sits perfectly level. And we use things like a spirit leveler for that as the same purpose, to make sure something is level. We also have things like the horizontal line, which is level. But in the globe world, the horizon, which is basically the same word minus an A and an L, is curved, which doesn't make sense. So those two things on their own sort of point towards that we live on something that is flat. And if you go to the coast, if you go to any coastline, for example, Sheringham, we went to Sheringham a few years ago, and I asked my partner's son there how he would describe what he could see across from us, and he said it's flat. And you can't hide that. A child will tell you exactly what they see. They're not going to say it's curved or whatever. It is, as far as I can see, and the evidence sort of proves that it is a flat realm that we are on. And other things fall into this bracket. So things like gravity, which is actually density, not gravity, because gravity can hold billions of tons of water on a ball, apparently, but it can't hold clouds down in the same place. Clouds are made of water, the same as the oceans are made of water, but they float perfectly fine. And if you think about the amount of tonnage, so for example, gravity can keep a 150-ton locomotive attached to its rails, but it can't stop a sparrow from taking off, which proves that gravity doesn't exist. Because if it can keep something of 150 tons down, it's going to keep something that's 2 ounces on the ground. And then we get to other stuff like, for example, the Earth, the Moon and the Sun, which I believe are local entities, and these are easily proven as well. In that, when you get days where you get sunshine and cloud, and you see the sunbeams shooting either side of the piece of cloud that's covering it, that if the sun is 93 million miles away, you would not get the sphere of light coming off from the light source. And that's something I've done a little experiment here with that. Basically getting myself a flat piece of card, a small piece of cardboard, cutting in 4 holes, one in each corner, and getting a torch and shining it onto the piece of cardboard and bringing it closer. And the closer you bring the torch to the piece of card, the beams start to fan out, as it were, if that's the right description. And also, in with regards to the moon and the sun, there are days where, and even fairly recently, where some days in the middle of the day you'll see the moon and the sun in the same patch of sky. And the liars at the likes of NASA, whose full name, by the way, in gematria equals 666, so you want to just take that under consideration, that we're told by NASA that the shadow on the moon is from the Earth, which it cannot be, because there's times when the sun and the moon are in the same patch of sky, so it's impossible for the shadow on the Earth, on the moon, to be that of the Earth. It's impossible. The sun and moon, I believe, are self-illuminating. And with regards to one of the good example I give to a lot of people is that the sun and moon are opposites in nature. So the sun is warming, the moon produces cold air. So like frosts, for example, I think in wintertime are caused by the moon. And a good example I give of this is if, like during the summertime, if you've got a car parking space outside your house, and you have your car's not there, you have a heavy shower, the water covers all the area that in the car park. You park your car over your space, and the sun will evaporate everything else around it, including on top of the car, but not underneath the car, because the sunlight cannot reach underneath, because the car is blocking between the sun and the water underneath it. Well, that also applies in winter when you get frosts. So if your car is parked, or another example in the same sort of situation, if you've got houses where one roof line is lower than another, and the moon follows its way around and doesn't actually hit that piece of roof line, there'll be no frost on it. Now, if it's according to the Met Office, we get frosts because of a clear night. Well, if that's the case, it would be a blanket whiteout across the board, but it never is. If you ever watch when we get frosts in wintertime, it only gets the areas that the moonlight reaches. So the moonlight cannot reach underneath your car. So you'll get a frost around your car, on top of your car, but it doesn't get underneath it. In the same way, it doesn't get you don't get frosts in a wooded area, for example, because it's in the shade. In the same way that sunlight, you'd stand in the shade to avoid the sunlight. Same principle. So those things on their own, I think, prove that one, the sun and moon are local to us, local entities. The moon provides cold air, the sun provides warm air, and that balance of warm and cold is the perfect balance for nature to thrive on a realm that's designed by whoever. It's your perfect balance of light and dark, warm and cold, decay and preservation, the perfect balance as you'd expect in nature. And then there's other things that come into this with regards to things like, for example, Chris, you'll know from years gone by, if you wanted to make yourself a door, if you got a piece of wood and there was a lump on top of that door that you needed to level out, the tool you use is a plane. So that plane makes that, once you've worked on it, makes that door, the top of that door, level, flat, whichever one you want to use. Aeroplanes do exactly the same. They fly level. Because if, according to NASA, we live on a ball and it's an open system, so i.e. meteorites and stuff can get in, an aeroplane would have to be correcting its altitude for the horizon, to keep itself level with the earth below, because it would naturally, if a plane is flying level, it would take off into space basically. So if you ever go on flights, if you go on long haul flights, we know full well that if you go to America, it's 8 hours.
Yes.
So you get up to 30,000 feet, and they'll ding the seatbelt light off, and they'll start bringing around the aircraft poison. You know, I mean, described as food, but obviously it's poison.
Pig swell.
Yeah. They've cleaned out the bog and then sold it
Yeah.
as food. Well, that plane then for 8 hours does not see any curvature whatsoever. That plane is flying perfectly level for all those 8 hours until it comes into the point of descent to land. Well, it wouldn't be able to do that on a ball. The pilot would have to be constantly correcting. And I've spoken to a chap at work who I talked to, and he's quite understanding of this, and he's spoken to pilots, many pilots, and he's asked them the question: are we on a ball or is it flat? And they'll always ask, I'm not being filmed, am I? No. And they'll turn around and say, it's flat. Because that's what their instruments work based on. The instruments work based on the distance the plane is from the ground. Even things like with the sun and moon being local, also the stars being local entities above us. Years gone by, you could navigate a ship by the stars. Well, if we're wobbling and tilting across space as NASA tell us, that system would be useless, completely useless, because the sky would be random all the time. You wouldn't be able to navigate a ship by the stars. And I can sit here in my living room, and after all this 1,000-mile-an-hour spin and 66,600 mile an hour, which is another 666 by the way, spin around the sun, and the millions of miles an hour we're hurtling through the galaxy, and yet there's a star that sits literally outside in the same spot every single night without fail, in the same vicinity of my living room window, as it were, and it's there every night despite all this moving and tilting and floating and all the rest of it that we're told it does. I don't believe any of it. I don't believe for one second that we've ever left this realm. I don't believe anyone's ever landed on the moon, and I don't believe for one second that we are rolling around in space in any way, shape, or form. And there's lots of things that come into it, lots of other things that come into it, like if you've got Sky TV, it's described as satellite television, yet the satellite dish on the outside of your house points to a ground-based mast. It's not pointing into space, it points to a ground-based antenna, should we say, and then they use cables to transfer the images to your TV or whatever it is. And the same applies with mobile phones. We're told that the signal goes to a satellite before it comes down to the net to whoever you've texted. Well, that also doesn't ring true, because if that was the case, you get a better signal on your phone on an aeroplane than you would down on the ground, because you're closer to the satellite. And we all know that you can't get a signal on a plane, even though they apparently managed it on 9/11, which was obviously done from an airfield somewhere. There's lots of examples of it, and there's lots of things that come into play. Things like we were talking about last week about Tartaria. That system links to a flat realm, because that system, the old world buildings were used for energy, and that grid was across the world, across the world, not around the world, across the world, because the world is across, not around. And a simple thing I'm going to bring into this as well, and this again comes back to the English language. As a photographer, so for example, the picture that's in my little dial there, if the sun wasn't quite right on that picture, and you'll know this, Chris, because you take pictures, if I get to a location and there's shadow still on the side of the locomotive, for example, I'll say to one of my mates, I'll come back here in about an hour's time and wait for the sun to move around. Now, you don't think about that sentence, but it's true. You are waiting for the sun to move around. Nobody ever says, I'm going to wait for the earth to move around. We always say, I'm waiting for the sun to move, because it is the sun that's moving, not us. There's my starting point. I've got lots of others. You're on mute.
Thanks for telling me I'm on mute. It's quite good of him. Yeah.
There you go.
Right. I said
I'm still here. Don't worry.
I said that I would show a little bit of bias. I mean, I'll remain neutral, as much as neutral as possible, but I'll help the first person on because they're at a disadvantage. So, have you heard of a chap called Auguste Piccard? Auguste, Auguste Piccard. Well, he got into in 1931. He got into like a ball type pressurized capsule, went up in a balloon to 15,781 meters, and he claimed that the Earth was flat, and as he looked out of the window of his capsule, and there was a famous, I think it was Heineken advert about 20 years ago that had a recreation of this chap called Auguste Piccard in 1931. So I thought I'd just add that into the mix. He was a scientist, I believe, so he said the Earth was flat. So
I was going to quickly add something else onto what I've been saying as well, because I think you'll agree with me on this one, Nathan, is that we know that the people who run the world, as it were, whatever it is, are all satanic pieces of shit.
Yes. We can all agree on that.
I think largely that's true. Yeah, not
and
not in all cases, but definitely, I wouldn't disagree with that one.
And let's be honest, they lied to us about everything. They lied to us about 9/11. They told us it was some Arabs in some aeroplanes, which wasn't the case. They lied to us about you know what we're talking about. So why would they tell us the truth about where we live? And of course, the biggest satanic.
Can I answer that now? So it doesn't. Right. So there's a quote that says, "A half truth is more dangerous than a lie." For the reason being that if you were to go around lying about everything, then you'd get sussed out straight away. Okay, yes, it is possible to tell a massive lie occasionally and get everyone to believe you based on ignorance or mind control or whatever you want to go down. But it's a case of, if they lied to us about everything, then nobody would believe anything, and therefore they'd never get away with it in the first place. So the idea behind what you're saying there, I understand where you're coming from, but just because they tell lies doesn't mean they're lying about everything. So I'll shut up and let you finish your.
But but I guess the biggest lie they could give us would be or the biggest satanic ritual they could do is to hide what we live on and why we're here, and what this earth, which is an anagram of heart, which would technically mean it's at the center of everything. The whole picture sort of revolves around, like, for example, they're talking, no offense with the globes thing, to be able to promote their way of thinking, they have to get it into schools first and foremost. And I can remember even when I was at school back in 1864, whenever it was, every classroom you go into, there'd be a picture or a globe on the teacher's desk, just to keep reminding you of what they believe, they want us to believe. Like the same with dinosaurs and things like children's clothes, for example, have dinosaurs on it, construction, because that's what they want us to believe, and that's where they want us to go. And they'll have pictures of spaceships on, because it's psychologically reminding you, oh yeah, we live on a ball in space. But none of us feel any of that motion. And one of the things that comes into what I've been saying is, if the Earth spins east to west at 1,000 miles an hour, so we're going back to the aircraft. If it's spin, you know where I'm going on this, don't you?
I do know, yeah, because I've got a counter argument for it, and I've got graphics to explain it. I think I've got graphics for that one anyway.
If it's spinning at 1,000 miles an hour, and you're on a plane doing 500 miles an hour, your destination will arrive behind you. And any
not necessarily.
And any north-south facing airports, runways would be impossible to land at, because that plane would never. Because if it's an open system, at what point does the movement of the Earth not affect, for example, an aircraft flying around it?
Yeah, I get you.
And your quickest, if you've got a flight going from South America to Australia, would your quickest route not be, in your model, underneath, across Antarctica to the other side? But they never do that. There's no flights over Antarctica, as we know, whatsoever. They
Yeah,
all
there
come
are.
across either into the northern hemisphere and down, or they go the other way around. Whichever way it is, it doesn't.
Yeah, can I interject there as well? So this is something that I haven't got any information on, but what I will say is, if people do a quick search, you'll find that that's not true. There are flights to Antarctica. There are flights that fly over Antarctica. There are flights that go, up and round, if you like. But again, I can make some recommendations at the end of at the end of our section as to the people that I would listen to and recommend as part of. Look, they do this better than I do. This is just kind of I just disagree with it, So, but there are flights. You can log them, you can monitor them, you can follow them. There's flight apps. There's plenty there. And unfortunately, I know this is one that's often mentioned by flat earthers, saying, "Oh, well, they don't do that." Unfortunately, it's been massively disproven over and over again. You could just get a flight app. You can see it yourself. So
well, it's
I'll
really it's lively in chat. I rough ballpark, I would guess it's 50-50. I don't know. Ballpark. It's about 50-50. But Stephen Truthseeker has put a very interesting point over.
Okay.
If the Earth is flat, how do you explain one part of the world in darkness, another in light?
I can do that one for you
quite
easily. If you've get yourself a torch, get yourself a flat surface.
Flat surface.
And
I'm going to turn my camera off again while I'm making notes, because I don't want people looking, "Oh, what's he doing?" So I'm still here. I'm just taking notes as we're going along. So
you're not about to grasp me up, are you?
Well, no, literally, note taking. So there you go.
So, I've got an imaginary torch and I got me flat surface.
So if the sun is close by, if you've got a torch that's fairly close to the surface and you move that around it basically works on a corkscrew type thing.
Yeah.
So as you move the torch around, the light will disappear off a certain patch that you're on as you travel. Does that make sense?
It makes sense. Yeah, I can see.
In the same way, if you've got your, I don't know how to explain that one better, but that's probably one of the better ways I can explain it, is that if you get a torch, if you put a torch close to a piece of paper and then move it around in a corkscrew area, one part of that piece of paper will be lit, and other bits will be darker. And obviously, the Earth is a lot bigger than maybe we're told it is. And as the sun and moon corkscrew around to get to the solstices, which means the sun stands still before it starts journey back. That's how you get your summer, winter, autumn, spring. So it's constantly the light obviously the warmth obviously changes as we go through the seasons. And if the sun is as close as they make it, as it is believed to be, which I believe is just above the clouds, as it were, that would explain why you get light and dark. And I'm expecting somebody to put in the chat somewhere at some point, how come I can't see Mount Everest from here? But that's just your vanishing point. That's perspective. In the same way that if you stood on a 100-mile stretch of railway line, the train goes past you, you'll see that train close up, and it'll get further and further away, and it'll go into distance to a point where you can't see it anymore. But you know that train's still there, unless it's Transport for Wales and they've probably cancelled it.
Yes, they probably would translate. You got your point there. Yes. But I mean, I personally do not believe that anybody's ever set foot on the moon, and I don't believe anything's ever got outside the atmosphere. I think it's a load of bullshit. I really do. We've got space stations, I think, and I think we've possibly have satellites. I don't know, but I think that we can go up to sort of near orbit, but I think we can't go through the Van Allen belt. because it just fry everything, electronics, the lot. So I don't think anything can get through the Van Allen belt.
Well, I personally don't believe the satellites at all. I think everything is Earth-based. So, like for example, they've been busy putting in fiber optics everywhere,
Yes.
fiber optic cables, which
Hmm.
you never see any images. For example, when they show pictures of the blue marble, where they take a picture, there's a satellite somewhere in that picture, or even the moon for that matter. You never see any pictures with those in it. And my understanding is the only map of the Earth is what you see on the moon. And if the moon is a ball of rock, as they tell us, which I don't believe it is,
It's a ball of bullshit, I think it is.
Yeah. It's probably more chance that if it's classified as a sphere. Well, if you shine a torch onto a snooker ball, the light will go to a point. But that isn't the case for the moon. It's constantly waxing and waning and different. And sometimes you get it where it's the lit bit is top to bottom, and sometimes you get it left to right. So it's not consistent with what we're told. There's a lot of 666s involved with NASA and their bullshit, basically.
Well, that's right. But I do take on board what you say about the moon with coldness. That sounded very logical, where moon is cold and the sun is hot. That does sound very, very, very logical. And you've got a supporter here in narrow laning. There are some times when 90% of the Earth is illuminated at the same time. Impossible if the sun is 9 billion miles away.
Exactly.
Can I just come into that one as well? I mean, 9 billion miles away, that's fine, but the sun is huge. I mean, it's like saying, oh well, if it was the same size of the Earth, then yeah, okay, maybe you've got an argument there. But we're on about a massive ball of energy that's it dwarfs the size of the Earth. In fact, it dwarfs the size of Saturn even. And Saturn's huge enough as it is. So 9 billion miles doesn't really make that much difference when you add in together relative sizes, and things like that.
But how come there's no residual heat from the moon? Because if what they're saying is that if they tell us that it's the sun that's hitting the moon to cause it to be lit or not, you'd have some heat off it, and there isn't.
And you'd have a deflection, but you see, when you mentioned about the moon emitting cold light,
yeah.
So that's been debunked, and it's been debunked again. I'll give people references if they want to go and find people doing this experiment live or explaining it from a physics point of view. It doesn't. Basically, what's happening is the moonlight it's heat being trapped beneath the object. That's it. So it gives the appearance of it being a cold light that's emitted. It's not. I've actually done this myself in the back garden. I'm sorry. It's just it doesn't stand up to scrutiny. It has been debunked by physicists
I've been out
and even just experimental. People doing it in the back gardens, you can disprove that. There is no cold light emitted by the moon.
So how do you explain that? So what do you think caused frosts and clear skies?
The frost, I have no idea. Frost, I would say that was more heat based. I would say that was entirely lack of sunshine, lack of heat, and the fact that it doesn't penetrate through the canopy to the floor. Sometimes it does, but maybe not as much, is because you're shielding the ground. I don't know. The frost bit, again, for all intents and purposes, mate, I'm not a physicist, but there are certain things that I do understand. There's certain things that I can look into. Frost is not one of those things. I would say simply that frost is, it's entirely heat based or lack of heat.
But then we get frosts in the summertime and we don't.
Well, you do sometimes if you've got a cold morning. You can still get frost in the summer. You can get frost. Mate. I remember back in the time when I can't say that on here. Let's say spraying. Before that was as heavy. I know I've got to be careful what I say. Before that was as heavy as it is today. I remember Christmas days and New Year's days where I could go out in a t-shirt and it'd be warm because the sun was still at clear skies, and it was warm. I remember that. And then you get the following year where you get snow and frost, and not that we get that much of that anymore. But you know what I mean? It's like, to me, that one to me is common sense. But again, I didn't look into the frost thing, so I can't, as a non-scientist. I mean, maybe there's another explanation that I'm missing there. Personally, I just think it's heat based.
I've observed it. I've watched, and not necessarily. I haven't stood up and watched the frost occurring, but I've been paying a lot more attention to that over the winter periods. So, like for example, last year when I was at my ex-partner's, I was looking at, we had a few nights of not last year, but 2023. We had about a week of heavy frosts, and every night without fail, or every morning when we got up, all of the roof lines would be covered in frost, apart from the bits that the moonlight didn't hit. And I knew the route the moon took, and it was only the bits that were in the shade of the moon that the moonlight did not hit that didn't get any frost. Every other bit that was in view of the moon.
Hold on. So the roofs that the moonlight didn't hit didn't have frost.
Yeah.
But doesn't that suggest that there's heat being deflected off the moon, and that's why there's no frost, because frost again is based on cold temperature, not warm temperature. So to say that doesn't that just kind of disprove what you're saying, is that
no,
the heat from the moon that's been deflected onto that moon sorry, not the moon, onto the roof, is melting the frost. To me, that's common sense.
Well, Mark Anthony, excuse me butting in here,
Yeah?
said frost is caused by water vapor that deposits on a surface that is below freezing.
But then an entire roof would be freezing, and that doesn't work either.
With some roofs, again, I'm trying to be neutral, but some roofs, I've put my architectural hat on now. You can always tell people haven't got very good insulated houses, because in the winter, if it snows or it's frosty, their roofs are nice and clean because it's all melted off. Whereas people have got very well insulated lofts, have got snow or frost on their roof tiles. It's due to the insulation in the house. So again, I'm still trying to be neutral, but that is my architectural hat, so I'll sort of take that off now. So,
well, again, I guess you could make the argument, it's like you've just said there, mate. I mean, there's going to be different materials for roof tiles. I mean, if you look at roofs from where I am, there's different materials per house. There's different types of roof tiles. Plus, you've got different kind of insulation. You've got different there's a ton of reasons that I could think of for that. Thank you for Mark Anthony for posting that, by the way. Again, to me,
but no, it's insulation though. But it's insulation because I mean, there's basically, you've got slate and you've got mainly concrete, although terracotta as well. But it's now mainly concrete now, and of course you've got steel with industrial buildings. But as I say, you look along houses in the winter, say when it snows, especially up north, and you'll see a nice clean roof. That person hasn't got a very well insulated house because the heat's coming through. You see, that's the thing. But now the thing. Also, people are coming up with some really interesting ones here, and what Patrick has said is that sorry, Patrick, I lost your where he initially said it, is that the Earth is stationary and everything else revolves around it.
Yeah.
Now that's another something I put into the mix, that the Earth is stationary. Would you go with that, Nathan, that the Earth is stationary and everything revolves around it?
No, personally, I wouldn't. Have you finished putting your first half across, mate?
No.
Or do you want a bit more?
I'll continue as time goes by. I agree with Nathan with Patrick there. Yeah, it is the sun, moon, and the stars that are moving, and we are not. We don't feel any remotest example of movement. But you get on a train, get in a car. I'm gonna come to that, because that one, mate, is as basic science as it gets. That's basic. That's relative motion. That can be very. I mean, if you get on a train, you can literally play tennis on a train while the train is moving, and you could quite easily play a game of tennis. Well, you're going to feel movement if
Well, you'd only feel the train is moving if there was like judders and stuff like that. Yeah, you know, that doesn't mean that you can't walk up and down freely, or you can't jump up and down on train, or as you said before the chat, try jumping up and down. Okay, fine. I've tried that. I've tried it on a moving vehicle, and
But if you jumped
again,
up and down
relative
on top
movement.
of the train,
say it again.
If you jumped up on top of the train, where would you expect to land?
I don't think I'd be daft enough to try that. But
if you
again,
did,
I'm not. But I don't know. Not tried it. I mean, if you've go and if you want to go and try that and prove it. But again, with you being contained. Well, okay. How would you explain something like when you're inside an airplane cabin and stuff like that? You can move free. You can do all of that because it's moving relative to the earth.
It's a pressurized cabin.
Well, but again, okay, so relate it back to a moving lorry or a moving train. They're not pressurized.
But if I climbed up on top of a container train and it's doing 80 miles an hour and I jump in the air, I ain't gonna land back on the same spot, am I?
I'm going to say try it and let's find out. Record it. I mean, again, this is one of the things that as a
you
kid
wouldn't
that
survive
I
don't think.
But you know what I mean? It's self-explanatory, isn't it? If I jumped in the air on a train, if I was stood on top of a train, at 80
I know where you're going with, mate.
I'd land way further down the train.
Well, hang on. Narrow laning says yes, but if the train goes round a corner, you jump. You land in a different place. Linear velocity is different to physics to angular. Okay.
Okay. Right. Well, again, my explanation for that would literally be relative motion. You're moving relative to the vehicle, to the earth. It's everything is in line. Again, this stuff has been proven to work. If it was the case that we didn't have relative motion, how would you be able to walk up and down on a moving vehicle? You wouldn't, because you'd constantly be, if you're walking down a train in the opposite direction that it's moving, you're saying that you should be hitting the back of the train before you've taken your second step, but it doesn't work like that. It's you are moving relative to the train, to the earth, and that to me, I get what you're saying with the roof of the train. I wouldn't like to try it personally. Again, this is one of the things that as a kid you always toy with. It's like, well, what if I jump up and then I'm going to jump down a couple of seconds later? I'm going to be in a different spot. Perhaps that would work on the roof of a train. I don't know. I mean, it's not something I'd like to go and try. But I see where you're going with the argument.
But look at a bus driver's training. I mean, a bus driver is trained with the skill that if there's a woman with 2 bags of shopping at the back of the bus, he slams his brakes on and she spins all the way down to the front of the bus. See,
that's a sudden stop, though, isn't it? That's a sudden stop of motion, or it's a jolt, which then that's going to affect you because you're no longer moving relative to that vehicle.
Potatoes and spuds in a shopping bag, they go flying out all over the place. You see, which is more entertaining for the bus driver. It makes the day more interesting, doesn't it? Sorry.
Well, I mean, if you want, sorry, I'll stick my camera back on temporarily. Right. So, I mean, the other thing you could try is, if again using the same logic, get yourself on a train. I know you like your public transport, Paul. So it's an excuse to get on some. Just do a bit of juggling on there and see if the balls hit you on the face, or whether you can continue that. You can prove that without standing on the top of a train cart and potentially smacking your head off a tunnel as you're going through and then landing 3 miles behind it, for example. But that, I would say, that's easily provable, and it makes sense to me. The whole relative motion thing.
So do you genuinely think we are on a ball running out in space?
Yeah. Otherwise, I wouldn't be Mr. Globetard in the corner. Yes, I do, mate. Again, this is.
So you believe NASA?
Well, no. Why do we have to suddenly say, oh, just because you believe that the Earth is a globe, that you believe NASA? It's nothing to do with that. But again, NASA lies. We know they're live. So where's all the funds going for NASA? I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. What I do know from a common sense perspective is, if they lied about everything, they would have been caught out a very long time ago. Did they land on the moon? Personally, not convinced. Do they have jet propulsion rockets? Yeah. Yeah, I think they've definitely got that technology. Can they get outside of the Earth's atmosphere? Don't know. Again, I'm not a scientist. I don't know enough about the Van Allen radiation belt. I've heard arguments on both sides which say that you couldn't get through there because you would have to have a lead-lined rocket, with enough propulsion to literally fire it through the Van Allen radiation belt without any damage being sustained. But then you hear the other side of that argument again. If you've gone to your research in the opposite direction, don't listen to echo chambers. Go and challenge this. This is what I did. They will say, well, actually, that's not true at all. Again, I'm not a physicist. I don't know how that works, but they say that the temperatures do fluctuate, but it's I don't know, it's relative or something. I can't answer that one. I don't know enough about it, so I'm not going to answer that.
The way I looked at it, when the Apollo 11 took off and stuff, okay, they did the countdown 10, 9, 8. Well, they had to have loads of fire and shit coming out the back of the rocket, because otherwise, if it just went like a fart, went off, everybody'd be disappointed, wouldn't they? So go,
well,
they go, oh yeah, look at that, but it's got. I mean, it's dramatic, isn't it? Here we go, all flames licking out the bottom.
But Chris, the idea that again, jet propulsion and stuff like that, we know it works because we know it works and we can see it. That we've been through wars, we're still going through wars where they're using that technology. We know it works. Okay, does it work outside of the atmosphere? Haven't got a clue. I'm not going to attempt to answer questions I don't know the answer to.
But we got James Bond.
Education.
James Bond is in here, commonly known as Survival Steve. Barefoot Forager. I jumped off a moving train once.
That doesn't surprise me, Steve. That doesn't. Right, so he can answer the question, then, can't he? Well, anyway, I'm gonna.
Was your legs running as you jumped off, so you could sort of run along, or did you just go and sort of go head first?
He parachuted off at me. He landed off. He was going through a mountain range at the time. The other thing, can I answer your question there about the moon landings? Look, you're not, in my opinion, you're not really a conspiracy theorist if you buy into that particular story. Have we been on the moon? Don't know. Have we been to the moon with the technology that we've been told? I'm not convinced about that in the slightest at all. So I will concede with that one, definitely. But again, that doesn't prove or disprove the shape of the Earth, mate. That just means that they've lied to us about the fact that they've gone to the moon. But that could be for a number of reasons.
But it's also that the fake moon landing was day 201, and in numerology, day 201 is a massive number, which is why we had the computer crash last year. Remember, Microsoft crash?
Yeah, I remember that one. Yeah, I was actually I was out of the area at the time as well, so that could have. I wasn't affected by it, funnily enough, but everything around me shut down. It's like, oh, this is interesting. Right, so can I go through again? I'm not going to go through it page by page because it'll take a millennia to do it. But how the
far away?
Well, hang on a minute because I've got to figure out how to. Oh, can you play it from your end? The presentation.
Yeah, I'll shove it on. Do you want me to shove it on now?
Yeah, put it on the screen. Yeah, there we go. So I shall try.
That's not the image I portray, by the way.
Well, again. It might not be. I mean, there's a square version of that, and I'm thinking, no, I can't go for the square version because then they'll say, well, we never said it was a square. The point being is you've got all these objects in space, planets and moons and things, and we can see that they are clearly spheres. They are spheres. You can monitor that from Earth, from a telescope. You can do basic observations to see that they're spheres. So the idea that you've got all these planets and moons and you've got a spherical sun, which I know that people would say, no, it's not, it's a luminary, blah, blah. Right, okay, I get that.
Can I just jump in there a second?
Well, no, hang on a minute, because I give you is there any chance, just let me get through the presentation and then we'll discuss it. All right. I know there's going to be contentious points here, but the idea that all of these objects in the solar system are going on rotational axes and that they're going around the sun, which is, again, spherical motion, that they're all based on spherical, physics, for want of a better word. But then suddenly the Earth just happens to be different to all that. It kind of goes against the rule. And this is just an opening slide. This isn't meant to be anything other than to me, that doesn't make sense. But I'll go through it. So basic flat Earth beliefs. I'll pick on some of these. Right, NASA lies. Yeah, can't be trusted. Do they lie about everything? Disagree. I don't think they do lie about everything, because then it would fail instantly. People say that the Earth is flat, therefore it proves the existence of God. Are we limiting God's capacity by our understanding? No one thought that the world was a planet prior to 1492. That's not true. The Greeks, the Macedonians, I would say even the Akkadians and the Babylonians to a certain extent knew that we were certainly not flat. I mean, there's arguments for that in the other direction as well, but certainly in the case of the Macedonian Greeks, or the Macedonian Greeks, however you prefer to say that, they were very spherical based. The world is a large expanse of water on a flat plane. There's no, well, we'll come to that, because the whole water thing is very, very easily debunked as far as I'm concerned. At the end, ask me about the sailing experiment. If I forget to do that, and I shouldn't, ask me about the sailing experiment, because this is something that logically everybody can look at and go, right, okay, that doesn't make sense on a flat Earth, and it's been done many times. Okay. The world is surrounded by a protective dome called the firmament. Again, this is largely a religious concept that was 3,000 years old. Are we saying that we know less now than we did 3,000 years ago? Or is it plausible to say that we know more now, regardless as to, what is it? To me, we've got experiments, we've got better knowledge that we've built upon. To say that people 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 years old knew better than we do, it's not a very good argument as far as I'm concerned. Water always finds its level and doesn't curve. That's provably false in both instances. Gravity doesn't exist. Again, I understand where people have come from, because I went down this particular route, and I thought that, yeah, you're right, gravity doesn't exist. It's basically electromagnetism combined with centrifugal force, right? So that in my mind is what it was. But then you look into it again, you take it from an alternative perspective, and it's you can't actually have gravity. You can't take it out of the equation, because nothing works, especially when we're dealing with mass and spin, speed and all those things. You cannot take gravity out of the equation. Sorry, how was that? Yeah, can I slow down for the girl at the back? I'll try. You've got to keep me in check here, because I do tend to prattle on a bit.
I fully understand. It's okay.
Yeah, so again, I'm not going to go through each and every one of these in detail. I won't go through the science bit unless people request it. We can, if anyone wants to take a picture of the slide, please feel free to do so. We can come back to it. Some of these we'll come to shortly, so I'm not going to go through that. The one at the end there, the idea that if we were on a ball in space, hurtling around, on our axis around orbits, etc., that anybody that was in Australia would simply fall off the Earth. That, to me, and again, I know people who, well, I've got very good friends who say that to me, and it's just like, yeah, that's again that's not what's being said by mainstream science at all. That's not a case. I mean, but we'll come to that. I've got slides for that. Flat Earth perceived curvature versus actual curvature. So again, I'm not going to read all these slides. For anybody who wants to take a screenshot of that and dig into it at a later point, please feel free to do so. What I've found, and what other people who've investigated flat Earth claims have found, is that when flat earthers are measuring curvature of the Earth, what they're doing is they're basing it on a parabola measurement, not the curvature of the Earth, which is why the measurements don't seem to add up. Now, again, I'm not a mathematician, I'm not a physicist. Please don't ask me to explain that, because I can't. What I can explain is that they most definitely do use parabola measurements as opposed to actual curvature measurements. So, just moving on there. Right, speed of the Earth's rotation. Again, flat earthers will make this out as if we shouldn't be able to stand straight at all. This is where relative motion comes in. We are moving relative to the Earth. Okay, so what people tend to forget in the flat Earth community is that the Earth travels around on its axis every 24 hours. Right, the further out from the center of an object you get, the slower that would be. Right, so if you're taking the Earth to be spinning at a specific speed, then you're not going to feel that speed. Again, it sounds very fast, 1,000 miles per hour, but when you are on the outside of that object, it's not as fast as it sounds by a long shot. Again, take pictures if you like. I'm going to get to some graphics because it's easy to do graphics when we do that. Relative motion, I've gone into that. Again, something that's encased within some kind of compartment. You've got relative motion. You've got relative motion. You effectively, if you're born onto the Earth, you are in sync with that body. It's common sense to me that you you're in sync with it. We see this all the time, but does that mean we're not in motion? No, it just means that we move in line with that motion. I'll come
So where
back
does
to
that motion stop then?
Well, it doesn't. What do you mean? Where does it stop?
How far out from the surface of the Earth does that stop?
Well, it wouldn't stop. It wouldn't stop. It's just
because, like for example, some days you'll see clouds moving in all different directions. They're not caught up in any spin. They're completely ignoring it.
Yeah, but you could say that weather conditions fluctuate all the time. Clouds will travel at different speeds. Sometimes they'll appear to be staying still. Sometimes they'll appear to be going really fast. You've got
and you also get smoke from chimneys that if it's
wind speed, wind direction. That doesn't prove or disprove flat Earth. That's just common common knowledge that wind direction changes speed. It changes speed, changes direction. That's not necessarily to do with the spin of the Earth. That's to do with atmospheric conditions. That's to do with weather conditions. All of that stuff. That it's kind of like a moot point, really. I don't see how that would prove it anyway.
If you could I mean, Paul, if you want to make notes, we can ask Nathan afterwards, so that you know what I mean. So I'm making notes here to ask Nathan afterwards because to be totally fair, you spoke without any interruptions from Nathan, and I'm not being rude. We're gentlemen here, and I'd like to hear the rest. Are you okay with that, Paul?
Yeah, far away.
So far away, Nathan. You want to hear your 10 pence worth.
My 10 pence worth, right?
Yeah, because I'm making notes. So again, I'm being totally new. I'm trying to be as fair as possible and totally neutral.
It's a toughie because this one. I mean, what I've seen is this is such a contentious issue especially within truth, circles. We'll come back to that because I've got a very good outro to this, which should put everything in perspective as far as I'm concerned. But right, I'm going to move on because again, there's a lot of slides here. If anyone wants me to come back to anything specific and read it out, please ask me to do so, and I will. Draw distance, vanishing points, and objects disappearing over the horizon. Again, this is one of those examples where they say that it's. How did Paul mention it? He said it's to do with vanishing points, but my argument is that why does the bottom of the object in the distance disappear first? Right, that only makes sense on curvature, right? So the further you get away from an object traveling around a curve, then the bottom of that object is going to disappear first, leaving the top in view for a longer period of time, and eventually that's going to keep going down with it. That one, clearly observable, very logical. It's not difficult. It's not difficult. And people use different skylines and city distances over lakes and rivers, and they'll say, oh well, the Bedford level experiment being another one of those examples. By the way, that was redone. That experiment was redone over and over again. What flat earthers tend to forget is that the final outcome of that was that it was a mistake. The one that flat earthers keep deferring to, that was a mistake. That was a failed experiment. They did it again and proved it to be very different second, third, fourth time.
Well, in 1838, that's when it was done, wasn't it?
Yeah, there's a few that a couple of the experiments that were done. It's like, yeah, okay, some of them still stand up to scrutiny. Many of them don't. Many of them were redone. Of course, if you want to prove an argument right, even though if you've got a bias toward it, then you're going to tend to want to ignore the ones that disprove you as opposed to the ones that prove you. But I would say that's more in the realm of critical thinking. But anyway, when we're talking about objects disappearing over the horizon as part of a vanishing point, and I've got a biblical quote that'll say something along these lines about when the devil took Jesus to a very high point and overlooked the whole of the world. Right? Okay, there is no mountain that you can see the entirety of the world from, especially in that part of the world. You can't do that. There is no top of a mountain where you can see the entire world. So what I would say is we have telescopes, right? Telescopes can see over vast distances. We can see planets through telescopes. Planets are a further, they're a massive distance from Earth. And so if you can use it to see over that kind of vast distance, then surely if you go to the top of a mountain with a high enough powered telescope and aim it in any one direction, if the Earth was flat, you would be able to see through that telescope everything on the Earth. You'd have to alter the distance on your telescope. Again, I don't know how optics works. I'm not overly familiar with that, but I do know that if you want to see a vast distance from the top of a mountain, theoretically, if the Earth is a plane and it goes on forever, or rather, a massive area, you would be able to see that through a telescope from a height. It doesn't have to be Everest. Any mountain will do. You would be able to see the entirety of the Earth using a telescope if it was a flat plane. You can't. It doesn't work like that. And if it does, please, show me the footage. Love to see that. And I'm going off on a little bit of a tangent here, but I've just come across where it says we're working on a model of physics. The Earth's speed and rotation and angle of the Earth's tilt is 23.5 degrees. How would you explain seasons without the Earth's tilt? There's no, again, well, don't answer that now. This is just like I'm putting a question out there. How do you explain seasons without the tilt? So with a 23.5 degree tilt on its axis, as it's moving around the sun, that explains seasons perfectly. It fits. It's like clockwork. There's no argument there. The idea that you've got a luminary shining around and doing circles around a disk at different speed of rotation, etc., and to create the seasons, that doesn't add up at all. Anyway, I'll move on from that. Right. So with the vanishing points, the higher you are, the further you see. Second point, if you zoom in with high power cameras, high power lenses, your view distance should theoretically be able to see across further distances the higher you are. In theory, you should be able to see the entire plane if you want to look at it like that. So I'm going to move on past that. The 90 degrees there, the 23.4, and where he's getting his 666 in the chat, it's not. The actual tilt of the Earth's axis is 23.45, which dismisses that figure. I know he's gone for the satanic inversion, but the actual statistic of the Earth's tilt is 23.45, not 23.4. So whenever you have a mathematical equation that ends in a 5, you round it up to the nearest number as opposed to rounding it down. Anyway, right. Here's some examples. So some nice pictures for the peoples. As far as I can just leave that on the screen. It should prove itself from what I was saying about vanishing distance and stuff like that. Over a curve, the bottom of an object will disappear before the top, and if you travel far enough around that curve, then it's going to disappear entirely. If that is not the case, if that is based entirely on vanishing distance, get a telescope and prove me wrong. Nobody's been able to do that, which suggests that the Earth is curved, and that's not even my best argument. That one's, there are some better ones coming up. Water always finds its level, and this one's always taken out of context. So yes, it does find its level over a surface. Yeah, it does. But what we're forgetting here is gravity. I'm going to show you some pictures that should clearly demonstrate that, water itself does curve. It does have the ability to form spherical shapes. Just go and have a look at a leaf after it's been raining. That one disproves that one straight away. I'll come back to some of these if anyone wants me to. This is what I'm referring to. Again, I'm not a physicist, so please don't ask me to give you this in fine detail. I can only give you it as I've written it. You have electromagnetism causing curvature in water when it's put close by. So you've got static, which can interfere with water curving. You can do this with a tap and a comb. The natural shape of water is spherical in and of itself. Some graphics on the screen now which clearly demonstrates that. Where are we? Ironically, right, a spirit level. Yeah, okay. You mentioned the a spirit level that uses a flat surface or a plane, but does water not curve in that spirit level? Is the liquid in that spirit level not itself? Does it not create a bubble in the middle? So okay, it might be a bubble of air, but the water's still curving around it. That shows you that water can curve. That and it's a perfectly normal thing to do. Electromagnetism can affect it. Without going into too much detail, a lot of people say that vacuums are problematic for globe Earth, etc., because it should suck everything into the vacuum, so there shouldn't be anything on the planet if there isn't a dome that encases it. But that's not how vacuums work. Vacuums are simply empty space. That's it, just empty space. Come back to that later. I've got another slide for that. A couple more examples. Leaves with spherical water droplets on them. Which looks very pretty, by the way. This one, this is a bit of a flat earther meme trying to discredit what I've just said there about the leaves. About 321 million cubic meters of water curves around a giant spinning ball because it says so on a droplet on a leaf. Okay, well, that doesn't debunk anything, unfortunately. That, to me, proves it. And, I deal with it, I guess. If the Earth is a globe, why don't people in the southern hemisphere fall off? I would suggest that anyone who wasn't right at the top of the ball would fall off if that was the case. You'd be slipping and sliding all over, and you'd eventually fall off before you even got to the equator. Space has no direction. Space is a giant vacuum with objects in it. And again, a vacuum doesn't mean that it sucks things to it or out of any other objects. A vacuum is simply an area of empty space. It's just empty space. That's it. The laws of physics still operate within that empty space, such as light, heat. That can still transmit through vacuums. There is no direction in space. You can't say that bit of space over there is north and that bit down there is south. Space is only relative, or rather, the direction that you are using is only relative to the observer. Space doesn't have a direction. Australia is no more upside down than Norway is. The equator effectively is just as upside down as anywhere else on the planet, because there is no upside down, left, right, northeast, southwest in space. That one, it's very simple for me, but again, I know there's arguments against this. Just to sum that up, there's no cardinal directions in space. Nobody's ever suggested that, apart from flat earthers. Lunar eclipse. I've got some graphics coming up for this one, which I'm hoping is going to speak for itself. Now, I once said this. I'm not going to mention any names, to a public speaker who was doing a presentation about flat Earth, and at the end of the presentation he asked about, he said, has anyone got any questions? I said, yeah. I said, please, can you explain to me how a lunar eclipse works on a flat Earth? He didn't understand my question, and this is an intelligent guy. Now, I've asked this question by proxy, it was through somebody else, to Eric Dubay live on air. But instead of saying, right, this is how a lunar eclipse works on a flat Earth, he gaslit me. He deflected my question, and he got aggressive towards me. Didn't know who I was, didn't know if I had an agenda, didn't know if my question was legitimate. But I asked the guy I asked to ask the question to, Eric Dubay, he asked it. And even he said, as a flat earther, he was a bit stunned at the fact that he didn't answer it, and he didn't even try to answer it. All right, and I'm going to show you why, using graphics, why a lunar eclipse in and of itself is enough to disprove that the Earth is flat. This is the flat Earth model. Some people would say that the luminaries, the sun and the moon, is outside of the Earth's dome. Other people would maintain that the sun and the moon are within the dome, if you want to call it that. Okay, but the problem with that is, with a lunar eclipse, which it couldn't do this. So that little squiggly spaghetti junction on the right is just some of the antics that the sun and the moon would have to do in order to perform an eclipse. Moving on to this one. This is the globe version of a lunar eclipse, right? The Earth comes in between the sun's light and the moon. Therefore, it casts a shadow on the moon, creating a lunar eclipse. Makes sense to me. What doesn't make sense is this. Okay, so on the flat Earth model, either the sun or the moon, whilst it's performing the eclipse, as in whilst the Earth is in between, it would have to, either the sun or the moon would have to jump out of orbit, go completely to the opposite side of the flat Earth in order to cast a shadow and then jump immediately back. That doesn't make sense at all, ever. I've never seen an explanation that can explain this one. All right. But we're also told that the sun and the moon are the same size. So in my graphical not expertise, I've put that into perspective. That makes even less sense than the previous explanation of that. Because if they're the same size, then that's what we're dealing with. How can you get a lunar eclipse using that logic, using that physical model? The sun or the moon would have to jump out of orbit, go behind the object in order for a shadow to be cast upon the object by the Earth being in the middle. There's no other way of explaining that. Explaining that. That has to be a globe spherical model. There's no other way for it to work. Bit of a sarcastic slide there to show you what a flat Earth eclipse would look like. Again, that's just a bit of a meme. So, is everyone all right in the comments there? Am I rushing through it too fast? Again, I don't want to spend too long on the slides because
yes, I mean, you know, we want to be fair to Paul as well. You know, I'm trying to be as fair as we possibly can. Paul, you're okay there, mate?
Yeah, I'm just writing in chat while I get the chance.
Yeah, as I say, I hope you don't think I was rude earlier, but you know, it's nice to give both sides, and we're both gentlemen. You know, it's nice to sort of give both sides equal.
He's a top bloke. He's all right with it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm making some notes here.
Yeah.
That I'm trying to be as neutral as I possibly can be. So here we go.
Yeah, again, the message at the end of this, and I'm going to read it out, and it's courtesy of somebody else, and it just speaks volumes to me. Anyway, so constellations, cardinal points, hemispheres, aurora, magnetic poles, rotational direction, and the Coriolis effect. Now, I'm going to need graphics for this because it sounds a bit complicated. First point, using the United Kingdom as an example, you know, we have Scotland in the north, the Isle of Wight in the south, Wales in the west, and then East Anglia in the east. Nobody can dispute that. What are we using as a reference point for that? We're using the North Pole as a reference point. Okay, so that's where we get our cardinal points from, and anything that's the opposite of that is the South Pole. Second point, the Earth is divided into two hemispheres. Now, this also, as far as seasons and the equator is concerned, this does not work on a flat Earth. I'm going to show you a graphic. Hopefully, it's a bit mishmash because I'm not an editing wizard, but I'm going to show you the problem with this particular theory. In fact, I'll leave that for the graphics before I go into further detail. Right. Third point: if you were on a flat plane, then then the entirety of the night sky and the star constellations would be the same no matter where you viewed them from the Earth. That's not true. In the southern hemisphere, you get an entirely different night sky and star formations than you do in the north. Plus, it's completely inverted. Everything's the opposite in the south as it is in the north. So what that means is that how could you do that on a flat plane? Why would you suddenly have, you know, this bit's looking at the sky from that particular perspective, but that's not? If you had a sphere, that explains it perfectly. I've got graphics. Right. Fourth point, there is a magnetic pull to the north when using a compass in the northern hemisphere. What I'm going with here is the Coriolis effect, which is basically you get that whirlwindy motion. So if you've got, when you let water out of a bath, in the north, it will spin in one direction, and in the south, it will spin the opposite direction. It's known as a Coriolis effect because technically it's spinning around two different magnetic poles. I'll come back to that. Right. I'm going to take a quick breather because I'm running out of area. So I'll come back to this. Do you want to read some comments while I just wet my throat? And
I'll read
because
some comments.
yeah,
You're
can you leave? Can you
Paul?
leave this graphic on the
Yeah.
on the screen just so that
Okay.
people have a reference point to it?
Okay, because
Cheers.
Paul, there's narrow laning. I don't know if you know narrow laning. He's very much on your side here, and I'll read him out. Where is it now? It says scientist Robert Foster in 1956 concluded the moon was a plasma phenomena, hence it emerges. And Nathan, I've had the Coriolis. Was it the Coriolis effect?
Yeah.
And Kathy's magic balm works a miracle on it. It cleared it up no end. And by the way, I'd like to give her a little quick advert, a quick plug. So this is advert time. I actually, about an hour before coming on the screen, either side of my nose here was red. Because you get sort of like breakouts, don't you, sometimes on the red nose? Because I've been on the computer a lot. I applied some of Kathy's magic balm on my nose, and well, just have a look. I mean, when it goes on the full screen, you'll see the redness has gone in about 2 hours. Not bad. So over to you, Nathan.
Actually, can I add on to that? I don't know whether Kathy's in the chat tonight. I have actually tried that balm on my hands recently. I caused myself a few blisters and a massive bruise in the center of my palm, and this balm was passed to me, and within 24 hours, fixed. So clearly, it is a magic balm, and so anyone who's interested in that kind of thing, yeah, it's good stuff. It's good stuff.
This is where you get it from healingfromwithin.co.uk. I got some the other day. It's bloody good stuff. And that lemon smells gorgeous, isn't it? That smell from it is.
Yeah.
How much is it, by the way?
I think you can, hang on, if you go into it, you can get a small pot of it. Hang on, I'll just go into our website, Healing from Within.
I'll do that. So don't worry, I thought you might know off the top of your head. It's okay.
Well, I bought a pot for about 12 quid. I think that mine was about 12 quid. But you can buy it cheaper.
Do we need to go and rub some on the Houses of Parliament then?
Yeah, that make them disappear, wouldn't it? Yeah.
Those issues.
I mean, if it was that easy, Paul, I think we'll be making it rain magic balm or something, just over that particular area. But there you go.
I have to say, it's a gorgeous smell. When I open the lid, my God, it's beautiful, isn't it? You go to ecstasy with that smell. It's sort of, what would you describe it as, Nathan? Well, sort of lemony smell, isn't it? It's gorgeous. It's natural.
Maybe citrusy. I don't know. I just remember that it felt good and it did the trick. So
It's making my eyes water here because it's running all the way down the side of my eye.
We're supposed to put it in your eye, Eric. We're not supposed to do that.
Well, it's all run down in my eyes because I put some in my forehead as well because that was a bit red. So it's all running down my eyes. I'm sort of, so I'm not sobbing. It's just that I'm.
He's lying. He's sobbing. He can't take the excruciating pain of this debate. I'll crack on with it. I'll crack on with it.
You got a blue patch on your face, Eric. Does
it's
the help with that as well?
Who knows? Yeah, it might deal with that, mightn't it?
Is a cyborg now? This is the internal lights. It's shining through his peripherals. It's. There we go. Right, I'll crack on with this because again, I don't want to spend too long on it. Right. If we take so the graphic in front of you, what you can see is the flat Earth plane, right? So in the center, you've got the North Pole, and theoretically around the perimeter, you've got the South Pole. Now, on a flat disk, if you're looking in 3 different directions towards the South Pole, i.e. the ice wall, right? Flat Earthers should theoretically be able to see the same star constellations, and the example that's given here is the Southern Cross constellation, because Southern Cross in the Southern Hemisphere. Which, if you're looking in 3 different directions in the night sky, then logically you're not going to be able to see the same constellations because you're looking in 3 different directions, right? On the flat plane, that doesn't make sense. Rationally, logically, if you are in 3 different locations looking out in 3 different directions, you're not going to see the same constellations. The only way that does work is if you have a globe and you're in the Southern Hemisphere and you're all looking towards the South Pole, where the Southern Cross is above, and you're going to all see that that constellation theoretically from 3 different locations. So the 3 locations here, we've got the tip of South America, the tip of South Africa, and Australia. Now theoretically, all using that model, using it on a flat Earth doesn't make any logical sense, right? On a globe model, it does make sense because it'll all be looking in the same direction at the same star constellation. There you go. So hello, Maureen. Happy birthday. I've already done that, but I've already sent my birthday message today, so there we go.
Hope you're having a good night. Yeah, sent Telegram message saying happy birthday.
There you go.
Excellent. That's it.
So this one here, I'm hoping, again, I'll tell you where I've got these from, but it's going to trigger a load of people. I don't care because the guy knows his stuff and
doesn't begin with N, does it? Ended A.
Professor Dave. so any flat earther who's familiar with Professor Dave, they'll be like, oh, he's horrible. Okay, well, whatever. I like the guy. I don't care if he dismisses a lot of conspiracy theories. I like him, and tough, really. I like who I like, and I like him. Anyway, one of the graphics that I'm using here, again, the previous 2 graphics are from Dave Farina. So please, if you want to challenge yourself on the flat Earth thing, go look him up, and I guarantee he'll twist you unless you're completely fixed on flat Earth, in which case don't bother. But if you've got an open mind and you're critical thinking, get your ass on Dave Farina's website or his YouTube channel, and he will explain this to you leagues better than I'm doing here. So can I just take that off the screen a minute, Chris?
Certainly.
Right.
Sorry.
So the Coriolis effect. Again, if you are take this graphic, right? You've got a pole running straight through the center of the Earth, right? You've got your north and your south. If you've got 2 people on either side of the planet, both looking towards the poles, what you're going to find is that the Earth and the sky around them is going to appear to be spinning in 2 entirely different directions, right? They're going to be spinning in opposing directions. And this, in line with the whole sinkhole where the water flows down a plug, again, Coriolis effect, that makes sense on a flat Earth. Now, sorry, it doesn't make sense on a flat Earth. It makes sense on a globe. I'm going to skip this for a second because I want to come to some slides. This, bearing in mind what we've just looked at there, this is the flat Earth map with the ice wall going around it. Let's look at what would happen if we were to take the Coriolis effect and apply it to a flat Earth, right? This is what we've got now. We would have to have the Earth at the equator moving in 2 different directions. It would have to be moving in opposite directions in order for the Coriolis effect to take shape on the Earth. That's what should theoretically be happening. Your land masses at the equator would be turning in different directions. You'd have constant earthquakes and volcanoes and land masses, and you'd have trouble, which we don't have. Everything's still in the same place. It's just another example as to what the Coriolis effect should technically be doing if it worked on a flat Earth. So just to give you, does that make sense? I don't know, Chris, can you see that all right?
I can see it. It makes sense.
Right,
yes,
right.
I can see.
So that only works on a globe. Doesn't work on a flat Earth. Right, I'm going to skip past that one. I'm going to skip the science lesson because I don't want to sound like I'm being horrible. But if anyone wants an explanation of science, I can leave these on the screen. They can take photographs. This is from my book. If anyone is interested, they can basically screenshot it, fact check it. That's absolutely fine. It uses the atomic model. I'm well aware that atoms are not tiny shelled objects. I get that, but the model still works. Anyway, I'm going to skip the science lesson. But if anyone wants to know how gravity works, how spin works, how force works, atomic mass, atomic spin, all of that could be very, very easily understood. Hence, using Kids Britannica as a reference point. Vacuums, we've already been through that. Again, vacuum is nothing more than empty space. It does not suck. It's not a vacuum cleaner. It is a vacuum. This is the idea of what Paul was on about earlier, using a light to basically shed daylight across the full planet. Again, on a flat Earth, I get where he's coming from. That light would be significantly smaller on the bottom part of that graphic, and it would be circulating around to create the day and the night. But why would it do that? Why would it create seasons doing that? It doesn't make any sense.
Perfect balance.
Well, there's balance, mate, and it's taking it to its literal definition without necessarily coming to the right conclusion. Atmospheric. So with this one, when some of the arguments that the flat earthers use is that basically when we look at the draw distance and things are disappearing over the horizon, like the sun, when the sun goes down and you can still see it, they are saying, well, it doesn't go down, it basically goes out of view and it's spinning round. Heat and atmospheric distortion can create that effect. It's been proven. Again, I'm not a scientist, please don't ask me to go into too much detail. For anybody who's interested in torus fields, Van Allen radiation belt being part of that particular construct. This is just to give you a look at how that would work and how, again, have we been to the moon, stuff like that. Don't know. I doubt it. I could be wrong.
Well, I very much doubt it.
Well, again, but, just... yeah, sorry, Chris, go on, carry on.
I just wondering, because it'd be nice to sort of both.
Yeah, I'm going to skip this.
I mean, it'd be nice that we can have like a little discussion.
Yeah,
because it's
I'm going to
9:30.
I'm going to skip this because this is basically the sciencey bit. Again, if anyone wants to go into it, right, I will read this one out. So this is an argument that was provided to me. In fact, it's in John Hamer's book, and I'd recommend his book, by the way. I might not agree with him on the flat earth issue. I do recommend his books. He's a fantastic author. There you go. He's going to pay me for that later. But in his book, he's quoted this: "Why the lie? No globe equals no rotation. No rotation equals no orbit equals no gravity equals no heliocentricity equals no geocentricity equals no Big Bang equals no Darwinism or evolution equals no missing link equals not random equals we are unique equals we are the center of everything equals intelligent design equals God or gods equals the awakening of mankind equals no new world order." There are so many problems. That sounds great. The first time I came across that, I thought that's a really good argument for God and flat Earth, right? Until you look at it and dissect it, in which case it makes no logical sense whatsoever, because what you're doing is you're telling God that he's incapable of doing the things I don't like referring to it as a he, but basically, who are we to limit God's capacity by our own limited understanding is where I'm going with that. We have so many intricate things on this universe, this planet, that we are still not understanding a lot of it. And you could call that God's work. You could call it the universal construct. Just the idea that the Earth has to be flat because God could only get his head around the flat Earth. That's ridiculous. God, the creator of all things, really limited by that. Anyway, I'll skip that because it's going off topic, but I've got a few biblical passages for anyone who's interested about where it says in the Bible that the earth's flat, blah, blah, blah. Okay, yeah, there are some interesting passages in there, which one of them definitely does suggest that it is not spherical, but rather round. But anyway, if anyone wants me to come back to that, we can come back to it. Skip towards the end. Using the telescope analogy from a high mountain, that's what we should be able to see. Not maybe not in that particular order, but go to a high mountain, take a telescope. If the Earth is flat, you should be able to see everything in all directions. You can't. I'm going to skip this Christian bit. If anyone wants me to come back to any specific slides or any question, I'll do my best to come back. And I'm going to finish the presentation with this. Right, the sailing experiment. Now, I want everyone to imagine that, just for a minute, flat earthers, just stay with me a second, right? Imagine that the Earth is a globe. And we're going to pop over to Antarctica in a sailing boat, and we're going to circumnavigate Antarctica, right? And we are going to go in an eastward direction, which means that Antarctica is going to be on our right-hand side, right? And we're going to sail around the entirety of Antarctica, which means that for the entirety of that journey, Antarctica, if the Earth is a globe, Antarctica is going to be in the middle. It's going to be to our right-hand side, and we're going to sail around it perfectly. Okay. Now, if we change that to a flat Earth, then if we were to go around Antarctica again, for it to be on our right-hand side, we'd have to be traveling in an opposite direction. So I don't know if people can visualize that well enough. But to me, that in and of itself, and that's been done over and over again, people have sailed around Antarctica numerous occasions, people have flown around it. If you're going in an easterly direction, it's always to your right-hand side, not your left, which suggests the ice wall doesn't work. Right, more to the point. Again, I apologise. There's a lot of information there. When putting this presentation together, I found myself becoming irritated. I mean, really angry. I'm thinking, I'm not going to have time to do this. You know, I want all the graphics in it. I just, you know, I should have done it earlier. But anyway, I'm getting, well, maybe, especially if you're not a permit. Right. So part of the problem with me doing this presentation and writing this as a chapter in my book is that I don't have the patience for this subject. I find it tedious. Now, I can sit there and watch debates. I can sit there watching it be debunked. I can sit there. I can do that when somebody else is doing it. I don't have the patience to do this. And the reason for that is, of all the dumb, stupid things that we are arguing about in a truth movement, this is not important. It doesn't matter whether it's flat, it's round, it's square, it's a holographic projection. It doesn't matter. Whether the Earth is flat or round isn't going to change the problems that we are dealing with. It's not going to take away the bad guys. It's not going to wake everyone up. This is not the problem. Why are we fighting about this, right? In response to my comments about me becoming irritated with this subject, you know, my gorgeous girlfriend, and she knows who she is, came back with this. And I said to her, I'm going to quote you on this because it is absolutely on point. When I said to her, you know, why we're arguing about this, she said, and that's the takeaway from the message, from what this message needs to be. You support your team, I support mine, and we can still go for a pint and be mates. All right? So, yes, we don't want solipsism, but free speech within our movement is vital. Yes, it is. And it means that everyone should be heard no matter what. And I'm always an advocate of free speech, and I hate censorship. Being able to respectfully disagree is vital, which is the whole purpose of this particular debate. And I'm hoping, you know, again, Paul's a decent lad. I like the guy. He contributes a lot of good stuff. I've got no hatred or dislike to him whatsoever. We can disagree on this, but it's respectful, right? To me, Flat Earth is a genius psyop to end all psyops. Yeah, I agree, because it divides and conquers. And divided and conquered over the shape of the Earth is going to finish this movement, and it has. It stood us down. Why are we fighting over this? This isn't the problem. All right, I'm going to end it there because I think that's the perfect way to shut it off and give Paul some recourse. There we
Paul,
go.
thanks for being so reserved.
Cheers, mate.
It's bloody brilliant. Thank you so much, mate. No, seriously, that's much appreciated. No, you put your point. Nathan's put his point. Now we can sort of openly discuss.
Yeah.
And again, I will still remain neutral because I think that's the way to be. Is it right to take the?
Yeah, you can unless if somebody wants to go back to a specific graphic, then just we can put it back on the screen. So yeah, that's fine.
And we do the proper do flop there, and you can see Kathy's. See, there's no redness there. See, that proves that the Earth is square. Because look, see,
did you do it? Did you rub it on flat, or did you leave it in a little globe?
Did it go around? Did you go around two different directions depending on the hemisphere of your nose? So
that's right,
like clockwise and anti-clockwise.
That's right. We've got my nasal head, and we got me that's a bit of a bogus one. It's a bogey one, you see. So I tell you, trouble is, you get me handkerchief out because I put some up here on my forehead. It's all running in my eyes. So it's bloody good stuff, though, isn't it? Look, I mean, look, it's not red at all. Because don't move saying people must have thought I was a bit pissed or something. You know, well, he's got that bleeding red nose, isn't he? You know. But
just before we like go into open discussion, shall we have some comments as well? Because there's some, you know, obviously I've not been able to read them, but there's some good stuff.
There's so many comments. Please don't take offence, because I've had to leave a load out because, you know, there are so many. And we go back to some early ones. Jojo Gizmo, okay. Come on, there it is. Seasons are calls when the sun moves from the northern hemisphere to the southern hemisphere and vice versa. And then we got right, repeatable science. Why can't they show us water sticking to a spinning ball with gravity?
Because the Earth's massive, mate, and you can't really, you know, replicate that on a small scale. But, you know, gravity does have that effect, and we can see that by the spherical, you know, drops and things like that. But you know, it's a bit difficult to replicate the planet.
Let me just ask you a quick question on that then. How come this is the one that gets me with gravity is that, as I said earlier on, so gravity can hold billions of tons of water to a ball, but it can't stop a green fly from taking off. So where
Right,
is gravity at that point?
But there's the relative motion again. By that very same logic, if that gravity was to affect us all in the same way, we wouldn't be able to move. So it doesn't matter. I could be a giant 20 foot tall, and I still wouldn't be able to move by that logic, right? But again, you're in a biome that you are, you're a life form within this biome. That you've grown up with this. You are part of this system. You move within it. It's like put it on a train again. Why can a person move up and down a train? Why can a fly move up and down? Why can a fly up and down a train? It's the same in principle.
Why is always Sorry,
just to clarify on gravity. Gravity is not central to the Earth, right? This is not an Earth-centric concept. The Earth does not pull everything towards it. Right? That's not how gravity works. If you have two objects in space, they're both going to have mass, they're both going to have spin, they're both going to have these energetic properties and these, relative force. The one that has the greater mass is going to have the greater gravitational pull. That doesn't mean it's going to pull the other object into it. It means that they're going to come towards each other until they've balanced out. There's an equilibrium, and then they're going to start spinning and going into orbit around each other when that equilibrium is met. Right? It's not, gravity is not one thing pulling everything else into it. Gravity, everything has gravity. Everything has that. It's built into the fabric of this construct, or whatever you want to call it. It's built into that.
But then density proves what I've said to be correct. Because
in what way?
If in the respect that if you've got a locomotive of 150 tons and you've got a green fly of less than a gram, naturally the density would keep your heavy locomotive on the ground, but this little insect is light enough to take off, so it's not as dense. There's no density there.
Again, I understand where you're going, but then apply that to a freight plane. Apply that to a jumbo jet, because that's flying with people on it. Is it hollow? Hollow doesn't mean it's not heavy. A green fly is going to be very, very light. Just the same as a plane being hollow, as it can still fly, it can still circumnavigate. That doesn't make any difference. If you're going to apply that principle of gravity holding everything to its surface, it doesn't matter how big or small, everything would be stuck to the center of gravity. There'd be no movement, there'd be no motion on that body.
But the jet has got wings in order for it to get off on the ground.
And a green fly's got wings, which move. But again, without sounding sarcastic, that one is. Life forms have different makes and builds, and they interact differently. They've got there's different densities to those life forms. You can apply that to anything.
Well, let me turn that around then. So if the jet then stopped its engines and stopped dead, what would happen to it?
It would fall to the ground.
Exactly.
Right.
It's only the fact that it's only the jet engines and the wings that are keeping it up there in the first place. So without those, it would drop to the ground.
Well, you could, but again, equally, you could argue that if a green fly stopped flapping its wings, it too will fall to the ground.
Well, that'd be called an aphid.
especially when I hit the bastard with a newspaper. It's certainly
Exactly.
don't fall to the ground, yes. But narrow laning has said, water on a leaf holds with surface tension. That effect disappears above the size of a droplet. So there's another point there.
Oh, okay, but again, you apply that to a large body, and if you add a lot of water to a big body of water, to a large planet where everything's under motion, gravity, centrifugal force, all these things, then it's going to find it's going to come towards the planet and it's going to level out over a surface. But level doesn't mean flat. Level means it's going to level out. It doesn't, it's not, level is not flat. That's why the words are not the same. Level and flat are two different definitions. But anyway, it's semantics at this point.
Is it worth wrapping up opening arguments?
Okay, we did that. Hopefully, quite well. I don't know. I don't know.
Right, I'm going to throw two bricks into the puddle now. Does the flat Earth? What about the hollow Earth theory, where people believe that there is a hollow Earth? Again, I'm open-minded about that one because there's that. What do you call it? There was that Viking tribe that disappeared. There's been Eskimos that have disappeared. Loads of disappearances. So that's something thing to throw into the mix.
You could be
And-
right there, Chris, because I'll tell you what, I have a wallet full of money,
Mm.
and then within weeks it's all gone.
That's a good point.
So you could be right.
That's an excellent point. And the other
Well,
thing,
I'm gonna hang on. I'm gonna come back to that, Paul. And say, what's money? What? It's just a foreign concept to me. I'm not familiar with it. What is it?
It's some fake, useless bit of paper that's apparently got some value.
Or is it?
That's right.
I think it's literally plastic these days. To be fair, I think the
Yeah.
UK money is literally plastic notes. But there you go. Could be wrong. I know it's cotton in America. They make their notes out of like a fabric, and people think it's paper. It's not.
right,
Unless that's changed. But then again,
I've been showing a bias towards flat Earth, so now I'm going to show a bias the other way. Okay,
okay.
so because I'm
You
trying
honour
to be, I'm trying
Well,
to be
tell
fair.
about them, please.
I'm trying to be as fair as possible.
Is he asking for his money back there? He's asking for a refund?
Yeah,
Please.
Fuck bobs. I make sundials as a hobby, and
okay.
the geometry works out perfect for a round Earth. For example, where I live, it's 51.7 degrees, and you get to learn it off by heart. In Spain, it's 38 degrees, and as you go further up, the degrees it goes up with, and you've got to work the geometry out to get, because there's different types of sundials. There's flat ones, and there's ones that go on the wall, and it all has to be worked out very carefully with geometry, and it works out perfectly. Now, I put this to John Hamer, who's a flat Earth enthusiast. I said, "Look, John, how does it work out? Where, from a geometry point of view, it works out perfect for a globe Earth." And he said, it's like a sort of you got the flat bit, and then you got the it's like a kind of half half an orange.
Yeah.
Can I put a question on that then? Because
Certainly.
to me, a sundial, that was one of my arguments I forgot to bring up, that a sundial would work perfectly on a flat realm with the sun as your timekeeper. If your sundial is sat correctly in line with the succession of the sun going across above us, because in theory it's the sun that's moving.
Yeah.
Not necessarily, because the angle of degrees changes with the sun, and plus you'd have a full shadow going around the whole thing. If that was the
time
case.
would still be
If
correct.
I'm going to it a little bit different, you cannot set a sundial up in February because of the Earth's wobble.
Yeah.
Because it's a wobble. Now, also, the Romans set their times by a sundial, and an hour was 40 minutes in. Hang on, I've got this right way around. It's either in the summer or the winter. It was in the winter. It was 40 minutes. And in the summer, it was a full hour because of the geometry. Now, the Egyptians, they've found that the ancient Egyptians we're talking about, they've actually found sundials around their monuments. Now, that is the thing that gets me, and that's what John said. So I'm showing a bias now towards Nathan because, as I say, I make sundials. So, and I still can't work out why. Is it that as you go further up, like Birmingham, it's 22 degrees, and you go further to Scotland, it's 23 degrees, and you're going up, and it's 24 and it gets up to 90 degrees at the top. So and also
relative depending on where you are. Then I mean, so that's kind of it's a science in itself by the sounds of it. I mean, I wouldn't know how that works, but
yeah.
Plus, you mentioned about the Egyptians having sundials everywhere. I mean, if you look at the obelisks that they've got all over the place, big or small, I mean, they potentially could be some kind of like clock, if you wish. I mean, we've got clock towers because we can measure time differently, and we've got cogs and clockwork. But maybe that was the Egyptians' way of measuring the time of day. Don't know. So
it could be because I'm fascinated with sundials, and the genome, as I say, it rises. It takes a long time to set one up. It rises and falls, and people buy them and say in Spain, bring them home, wonder why they don't work properly. It's because it's set at 38 degrees, and it shouldn't be. If it's in Hertfordshire, it'd be 31.7 degrees, and you've got to get true north, not magnetic north. And that's another big difference because people might set it up with magnetic north. You can't set it up with a compass.
But again, that's based on you've mentioned there the Earth's wobble, so you got precession, but then precession is also directly interweaved with the Earth's tilt on its axis, so you've got 23.5 degrees, which explains that. How do we get precession without the Earth being spherical? I mean,
I've broken my sort of neutrality there, but I'm thinking I've got to give both sides a fair crack of the whip. It's like, should we give masochists a fair crack of the whip? That's what we should ask. So, sorry.
I'm not answering that question.
Yeah. But so there's that one. But then you've got Christopher Columbus. Now, they said it's a myth that they were frightened of falling off the edge of the Earth.
Mm-hmm.
And they said, he was very brave because they believed that the Earth was flat. No, they didn't. That came in.
They didn't.
Because the Victorians invented that he was frightened of falling off the edge of the Earth. It wasn't. So
the whole idea of those journeys was to find his way to the to India, wasn't it? But through going the opposite direction. Well, that again, okay, that technically works on a disc version if you know.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is Columbus knew that the Earth was a globe, a sphere, whatever you want to call it, because he intentionally wanted to go in one direction in order for it to sail round to the other, to a point from the other, from the bloody hell, I'm messing that one up. Yeah, I agree with you. Is what I'm saying. Yeah, the idea was to travel using.
Well, it was navigation. You
Thank
see,
you.
It's like the other one is the timepiece that what was his name, Harrison. Now, for years they couldn't find where is it now? There's Northings and Eastings, longitude. I think it was. That was it. And ships were getting lost because they couldn't find longitude. And it was thanks to the Harrison chronometer, or this very accurate timepiece, that it saved many lives. And there was a award that was given out, and they tried the Navy tried to stop Harrison getting this award, and the King stepped in and did a marvelous thing and said, "This man will get the award," and he stepped in and made sure Harrison got the award for this finding longitude. Again, I'm stepping out of the path. Sorry, Paul, but I show leniency to both sides.
There's if you look at the equator and the Tropic of Capricorn and Cancer, again, Cancer and Capricorn are based on the star constellations that they're named after, right? And that is entirely based on the Earth's tilt of 23.5 degrees. I mean, even that from the equator. So you're on about true north and magnetic north. The only way that you've got that disparity because of a tilt. How can you explain a tilt on a flat disk? Without being too contentious. But
I mean, a horizontal sundial is far more easier to do than an actual vertical one, because you've got to calculate where the angle of the wall is in relation to the sun.
I'll leave that one to you, Chris. I'll leave the sundial. Although it does sound good, though. I mean, it sounds,
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I can actually, I can pull the pants off a girl talking about it, and if that don't work, I'll try some other methods. Or show my condoms. Here it is. It's my condom.
With the tiny thing.
Yeah, that's my condom. There it is.
Maybe we need a donation page, Chris, to see if we can get you some kind of operation to fix that.
It looks like an ants condom, isn't it?
Oh yeah, totally. Oh yeah.
But now Trees M has said, hang on a minute, regardless of the shape of the Earth, no way are we spinning 1,000 whatever M same time as around the sun, 66,666 and hurtling through the galaxy more than quarter miles per hour, etc., etc.
I would disagree with that and say that we can, because everything. I mean, if you look at the solar system as clockwork, if that helps you to kind of put it in perspective, everything is in relative motion. We are moving relative to the planet, relative to the sun, relative to the sun's course. I mean, I know people have got a problem with this. I can't prove it. I'm not a scientist, I'm not a physicist, but I can visualize it in my head very clearly, and it makes sense. It's logical to me. It's when you have a look at basic physics, basic atomic physics, and stuff like that. You can find this on the internet with a quick search.
What?
It's not difficult to get your head around. It's
But
But
then
why
with
is it?
regards, you were saying
Sorry,
about the
carry on.
planets earlier on that we can see. Now, before I understood about what the flat realm was all about,
Mm.
I'd heard the term wandering stars mentioned
Yeah.
previously in relation to
To the planets.
what you classify as planets.
Yeah.
Now we only have, and sorry to use NASA again, we only have NASA's example to prove there are planets out there. But to us on Earth,
Not
they
really.
look like they could be just points of light within the firmament, within the dome, and it is us that is static. So when you were saying about with the Coriolis effect,
Hmm.
my approach on that is I don't believe we're a flat disk in the middle of space, in the solar system.
Hmm.
We are at the center of everything, and it is everything else that is spinning around us. The same with the moon, the sun, the stars, the wandering stars, whatever you want to call them. That is my understanding of that, and my approach on this is not based on. I have watched some bits and pieces about it to have a bit of an understanding,
Hmm.
but I also put into perspective what I physically see. So, for example, we went to, as I said, we went to Sheringham, and you could line up the horizon. You could probably see 70 or 80 miles of flat of the horizon, and you can
Hmm.
line that up with a flat wall, and you can see there's nothing. There's not not even the slightest dip on either end. So there's things that I use visually, and I was saying about like the Tartaria thing with regards to the energy, the global.
Yeah.
That's not the global. The worldwide energy system.
Hmm.
That would only work if it is flat.
Again, I don't agree with this whole Tartarian narrative, but I don't, without going off into a tangent. But in order, when you mentioned that, we've only been able to see planets through NASA, that's not true. I mean, if we, go back to certain points in history, you had Galileo, you had Copernicus, you had, the Ptolemies, which go back to ancient Greece and ancient Egypt and things like that. They could measure this stuff. The Babylonians could do it. The Akkadians before them could do it. The Indians could do it. The Japanese could do it. This is something that is known all the way throughout history. Now, okay, maybe different cultures had different interpretations of that, but they always came to the conclusion that whether they are planets or wandering stars or however you would like to call that, they observed their movements and they observed them as spheres. So I get where you're coming from. This is I'm not trying to be dismissive or contentious in that
No, that's. I mean, because like for example, you could look at as an example the old style motorbikes with a round headlight.
Hmm.
You could look at that from a distance and say, "That's a planet," but it ain't.
Well,
Okay,
It's a point of light that's flat that you can see. Doesn't mean
I'm gonna balance this out. Paul? I'm gonna say something to you that's probably going to shock you. Here. Now, I'm not at all convinced that the Earth is flat. One of the things that I will put in your domain here, which is the one that threw me off, which was the star constellations. Now, apparently, there's an explanation for this, but hear me out. This just to give it devil's advocate, right? If the Earth is doing this once every 24 hours and then it's going around the sun, right, and it's doing this, right? So every night when you look at the sky, the star constellations are still there. Now, okay, depending on where you are in the solar system at any one point, yes, they're going to be in a different location in the sky, but the constellations themselves remain constant. We take the zodiac, the Mazzaroth, however you want to look at this. You've got fixed constellations, and they have been there. Again, using Babylonia as a reference point, or Egypt, or these cultures reference these very same constellations, not necessarily exactly the same ones, but they still reference these constellations that we can still see today. Now, if light is traveling at that distance and you're constantly traveling around, right? So theoretically, from my perspective, you'd be looking out at the constellations, and every time you did a rotation on your axis, everything would be all over the place. Nothing would ever be in the same place. I mean, there is an explanation for this. I'm just playing devil's advocate to kind of, show that I don't hate, flights. Nothing to do with that. But the one thing that always got me is the star constellations doesn't make sense. And people say, yeah, well, that's how long it takes light to hit the object, and it's traveling at light speed and so many light years to reach the object. Okay, but then you're in a different location every single time, which means that they should all be in a different location every single time if they're operating on the same principle. And I'm going to leave it there. That's just devil's advocate.
Jojo Gizmo's come up with an interesting one. It says, an Eskimo disappeared when I kicked him in the
I saw that earlier.
Well, what I want a very serious answer to this. Do you think they'll ever be able to land a man on Rachel Reeves?
Why would you want to?
Precisely. Good point. Yes.
It probably is a man, to be honest.
Well, it's pardon me. It's certainly very. By the way, plug.
Oh, look at this! Look, notice how my handle's still intact, Chris. I mean, I don't abuse my cups like you do.
Yes, well, as I say, I've got my day in court next week for handle abuse of cups or mugs. That'll be coming up next. This bit. Do you handle full off your mug? Now, there is a pole shift happening at the moment. That's why
there's always a pole shift happening. It doesn't stop.
Flooding, apparently. I'm afraid that what's happening is nothing much to worry about. It's bullshit. It's part of the fear porn. Yes.
It's going north. I don't agree with you.
And it's going to go south, and it goes like all the time, swaying backwards and forwards. So
yeah, but do you know how that? I'm cutting. Sorry, I feel sorry for my ignorance. There was shit. Again, precession of the equinoxes would explain that pole shift because you've got the axial tilt and the wobble that goes with it. That works in line with precession of the equinoxes, and the cycle that we've got. Correct me if I'm wrong. It's roughly a 12,750. I might be off with the dates, but basically we do a full axial wobble, which means the poles are constantly shifting, and that's not going to happen without any knock-on effect. That is going to affect, the surface, and also, life. Yeah. Sorry, Chris. Sorry, mate.
And also, my sundial's more accurate than a watch.
Seriously. Even the pocket watches.
Yeah, the pocket watches. Yeah, spot on it is. Apart from February when it goes a bit tits up, but apart from that, you're all right.
I bet your sundial can't tell you what time it is now.
No.
plus, this is why February is the shortest month because they're like, oh god, the sundial, it's not doing it properly, right? Okay, we'll bring the days down for this one.
I've missed EastEnders because the sundial wasn't set right.
Yeah.
I write the time on a bit of paper and then stick it on the sundial, then people know what the time is, wouldn't they? So that they say you can't fool me. I'm too stupid.
I wonder. Well, I mean, logically though, if you go the opposite side of the planet, like when it's say winter up here and it's summer in the southern hemisphere, theoretically, then your sundial should work absolutely fine at the same time of year.
Yes, but there's something I just cannot get. You know what that is? Now, going back onto the flat Earth side, how come in around about March you see the moon during the day and it's high in the sky, but they can see the moon in Australia
on the same day, at the same time, exactly the same time?
Well, wait on a minute. The moon's here, okay, and there's the moon here, and there's the Earth there.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I don't know where they could, but I mean, surely isn't the moon where the darkness is? It orbits?
No. Right. Can I explain this one dead quickly? Right. So a lot of people get this one confused, and they'll tell me that the moon can be seen at the exact same time in the northern hemisphere as its opposite angle in the southern hemisphere. No, you can't. That's physically impossible, right? You can ask somebody in Australia. So if you see a full moon, ask somebody in Australia if they can see it exactly the same time. They can't. Right. The moon isn't specific to the nighttime, right? So you're going to see the moon, right? It's on a 28-day cycle, right? Which means it goes around the perimeter of the Earth at the orbit, whatever you want to call it, every 28 days. Which means that for every 28 days, it's going to be in a different position in the sky, right?
You went on the flat Earth there for a sec.
I'm not answering that. So that one, but that's basic physics. I mean, you know, a lot of people have asked me this. It's like, well, yeah, but the moon only comes out at night. No, it doesn't. That does. If it did, that wouldn't make sense. But does that one answer that one dead
I've
quickly?
got a question for you, though,
Oh, yeah.
Nathan. So, what do you believe is the shadow on the moon?
The shadow on what, as in from an eclipse, or are you on about the patterns on the
waxing
moon?
and waning. What is the shadow on the waxing and waning? What is the shadow on the moon?
Well, if you look, okay, well, go see previous arguments. So every 28 days, your moon is going to be in a different position in the sky, right? So that which then by default, the sunlight is going to be hitting the moon at a different position as it travels around the Earth. And this is like clockwork. You can measure this every 28 days. No,
shadow?
well, what the shadow's the Earth.
That's not
Oh,
true.
on an eclipse, right. What do you mean a shadow? There's no shadow. It's in darkness.
Okay, but
It's
So when you get, for example, a crescent or a waxing moon,
yeah.
and you've got
There's
the
no.
little-
So that's
let me explain. So
Yeah,
you got
yeah.
the little. So you got the little bit of the letter C that's lit. Should we say?
Yeah, I got you.
What
Yeah.
is the dark patch on there?
The dark patch is where the light's not shining on because the moon's in a different position. That's
And are you
it.
saying the
There's no.
shadow is the Earth?
No, only during an eclipse because I jumped the gun there. No, that's simply where the light doesn't shine on the moon, right? So you've got different light angles every 28 days. It's going to hit the moon differently. If you can still see, if you get again, go get yourself a telescope. If you look at that when you're on about the crescent moon and you can only see a little slither of light, you can still see the rest of the moon. It's just in darkness.
I know that, but
Yeah.
the reason there's a reason why I'm asking this question, because
Yeah.
I came out of work, and a couple of times I've come out of work. I think it was March, April time this year, and the moon and the sun were literally in the same patch of sky. I mean,
Yeah.
literally, the Earth is down here where I'm stood. The sun was up there, and the moon was up there. There's no way the shadow that's on that moon could ever be the Earth. It would be impossible.
No,
for the
because
for the angle.
Sorry,
angle
but
that it was
that would
at.
only happen in an eclipse, mate. That's the shadow on the moon only happens in an eclipse. Does that make
You might be
sense?
missing what I'm saying. I think you
But
might be misunderstanding
you're
what
on
I'm saying.
you're on about you can see in the daylight. You can see the crescent moon in the daylight, but you can also see the full moon in the daylight, depending on what time of year it is and whereabouts the moon is in the sky. But again,
then that can't
that's
be the
easily
sun
answered by
path.
rotation.
But the sun, and I have seen it where it's been a full moon in the daytime, and the
Yeah,
sun
you
has
will
been
do.
out at the same time.
Yeah,
But
you will do because again.
Let me finish. If it's in the same patch of sky, it's impossible for the shadow on the moon to be the Earth. A friend and I came out of work the one day, and I said, just a question for you. I said, he's not globe or flat Earth, whatever. I said, as you look at that picture now, the sun is there, the moon is there. What would you say the shadow is there? And he said, it ain't the Earth, is it? I said, no, it can't be the Earth. It's impossible. In the view that you've got there, it is impossible for that to be the shadow of the moon, of the Earth.
But again, the shadow of the Earth would only appear there if it was an eclipse. Otherwise, it's the light from the sun shining on the moon at a specific angle on a specific day because of its rotation around the Earth. But again, this is why we need graphics. We need graphics.
But then 3 days later, you'd have like a full moon with the sun in the same patch of sky.
Well, I don't know about the 3 days later bit, but you're going to have the waxing and waning, and you're going to have a full moon and new moon, and throughout different points of the year, you will see all of those sequences, whether it's daytime or nighttime. You're going to see a bit of both. Doesn't really make much difference. It's and the shadow on the moon only occurs when it's an eclipse, right? But the crescents of the waxing and waning is what you're on about there. That's not the Earth on the moon. That's basically the light angle shining from the sun onto the moon at a certain, time of day. I mean, if I'm missing the point, I apologize, but
Well, I've actually seen an eclipse of the moon where the Earth goes across the moon. This is in the early hours of the morning, and you do see this circle shape, and it's quite an amazing sight to see. There's a clear night, and there's a very big, look like a harvest moon. I actually saw the Earth. It's very, very interesting. But I think that it's one of these things. is what you said is that there's a lot of things being put into the realm by, shall we say, these social engineers
Mhm.
to put people off the scent of what's really going on, and that
Yeah.
is the powers that be are moving us further and further towards communism by every day.
Yeah, I don't think we can disagree with that one, can we? I mean, it's bloody
And
blatant.
and that's it. I mean, quite honestly, to the communists, does it matter whether the Earth is flat, square?
No.
I think it's flat, square, oblong, rounds, whatever it is. All they're interested in is global knocking us out, and that's it. And I think that and they're trying to divide us all the time because they know that once we get together, goodbye to them.
Yeah, hence divide and conquer. Because if you're not on the same
Right.
page, you're not unified. If you're not unified, you can't come together to oppose what the tyranny that's trampling on
That's
you.
right.
So
That's right.
come on,
Yeah.
people. Why we? But again, Paul, just to say here, right? I think this has been civil. I know I keep interrupting at certain
I
points,
think it's
but
bloody brilliant. I think this is great because
the thing is, though, sorry, let me get this out. The thing is, though, why is this such an important issue? I know what I've heard, but let's say that the Earth was flat. Well, what does that change? Okay, they've lied to us. Okay, so what does that change? How does that fix anything? Okay, they've lied to us. Well, they lied. We know that the governments will lie to us. We know the round table groups lied to us. We know we've been lied all the way through history from ruling elites and whatever you want to call them. Yeah, they lie, but the shape of the Earth isn't going to solve any of the problems that we're dealing with on Earth. It doesn't change anything. The
can I answer
dynamic's
that,
not
though?
important. Yeah, of
Can I
course you can.
reply to that one?
Yeah, go on.
There's a simple answer on that one because in the globe world we're described as being a speck of sand in the middle of a cosmos, as though we're nothing. But if the Earth is the center of everything, then we are very important as beings. We are very, very important individuals, and we may be a lot more powerful than the people who ever run want us to believe. So if at an early age you're shown a globe on a teacher's desk and they're telling you at the age of 6 or 7 that this is just a speck of sand in the middle of a big bang in the middle of nowhere, you're going to think to yourself, well, I'm insignificant. But if the Earth is at the center of everything, hence Earth is an anagram of heart, then we are very important. And it comes back down to a very big satanic ritual to lie about where we actually live and who we are. And that's where I think it doesn't matter what we're on. It doesn't matter whether we're on a globe, flat, square, triangle, or whatever it is. But the biggest point of this whole thing is the people who tell us this stuff are telling us we're nothing, but we probably aren't. We're actually very significant beings.
I agree with you there.
And I think that's where
the
importance of this comes into it. We can debate it all day long.
That's it. I think we've got some really good points over tonight. Excuse me, I don't mean to talk across you, Paul, but I think that this is what I wanted the show to be. It's perfect because we can go away now and people can think, oh, this way, that way, whatever. And again, I've tried to be as non-biased as possible. And I hope I've been that way because, and Aunt Sally has said, I agree with Nathan. What the shape of the Earth is.
The IDC.
I don't care. Yeah, I didn't realise that. People are investing too much time arguing about it.
Damn right.
Again, it's a bit like in the old days when banks had money, which they don't have now. If you wanted to rob a bank, you create a diversion over there. So whilst people are looking over there, you're robbing the bank over here. It's all a diversion tactics because I think they're running scared, the powers that be, and this is why I'm optimistic. And that's
why there's so much bloody censorship. They don't want us discussing things. They don't want us learning things. So they throw a psyop in to twist people's perceptions. you
That's
know,
right.
and there's plenty of those around, and it throws off the scent. So, of course, as soon as we go off on one of these tangents, then we're no longer facing the issue as a unified populace and just saying, well, no, we need to sort this out because this is what's affecting us all. So the censorship is part and parcel of, right, okay, they're asking too many questions, they're thinking for themselves. Let's throw them off the scent first. If that doesn't work, let's shut them down completely.
Well,
You know,
we
so
was talking about. I mean, I had on Sunday. Sorry, on Friday rather. Because I did an additional show on Friday, which is we're
Yeah.
going to do an additional show on a Friday on the 27th.
29th. Is it 27th? Let's have a look.
Hang on, let's just have a look. Is it
Yep, 27th. You're right, mate. Yeah.
7th? Yes.
Yeah.
And also, I'm updating, doing the new guest list. Lots of people asking. The other thing I'd like to say is loads of people have sent me emails. Please don't take offence if I haven't replied yet. It takes me a little bit of time to get through them because, as I say, people think, "Hey, Sean, I sent him an email the other day. He hasn't answered." Well, yeah, just bear with me. Nobody said that, but I feel like that. You know, if I sent an email to someone, and a couple of days passed, I thought, "Oh, bastard hasn't replied to me." So I know how you feel. So don't worry. I'll get round and reply. Thank you for the kind words. Yeah, sorry.
I take
Carry
it,
on,
Eric,
Paul.
you didn't reply to the email that said you just won £1 million if you replied by 10,
No,
12
no.
today.
From Nigeria, because apparently
That was it, yeah.
my great uncle died who left me a gold mine. And all I have to
That
do
was
is
it,
leave
yeah.
my
But you
account
had to reply
details,
by
you know.
10:13 p.m.
That's
today.
it. I tell you what, I'm getting lots of people on the Telegram, very nice ladies offering me a job. Have you had that on Telegram yet? And it's a load of bullshit. Yeah, I mean, it really is. And because when they come through, so hi, I'm some name we want to make up. You know, how are you today? And I usually come back with, I'm fine, thank you. Have you heard of that scam where someone offers you a job and they go and it goes silent? But I think we sort of come to the end of the show now, and we got to arrange future shows because, as I say, there's we've had oh crumbs, I forgot. I can never remember his name. Trevor John on.
Yeah.
He sent another song through, which I'm going to put on. And thank you, everybody that's watched the D-Day special show. It's very kind. I did that one with Monica Schaefer, and we did a Sunday show, which was very interesting. But there's historical things that we just can't go into. Why should that be? We can't talk about surrounding World War II. And you think, well, hang on a moment. If you do go into that, your people say, "Oh, you're a this, you're a that, you're a that, blah, 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 blah," and all this sort of stuff, you know. And it's sad, you know. Like, you're a round earther, you're a flat earther. So bloody what, you know?
Before we go, can I So can I stick? Oh, forget the slides. Actually, right. Just in answer to the question that Paul mentioned there, and this the quote that I read out earlier. Why the lie? Right. Was to deal with a specific thing, because I can see some people in the comments now, they're saying about this whole idea of if we're on a globe we're insignificant. Right. Let me just put it in a different perspective. If you are if you think there's a God, I mean, you know, a universal deity that is all knowing, all present, all powerful, all right, God, right, the most powerful thing to ever exist, right? Why, and again, this is the reason I say, why are we limiting God's capacity by our own simple understanding? If we are theoretically a tiny speck of dust in the grand scheme of that universal machine, right? Even if we are that small, if God is all knowing and all powerful, it doesn't matter how big or small we are part of that creation, if you want, right? It doesn't matter if you're a speck. Isn't there a quote in the Bible that mentions, you know, mustard seeds being, you know, insignificantly small, but they grow into, you know, this great tree? You know, it's the point is the same. If you see yourself as insignificant, that's a you problem, right? It doesn't matter if they see you as insignificant. If you allow yourself to be that, then you're going to be that. It's not what it's about. You might be equivalent to a tiny speck of dust, but if there is a God, and I don't mean a he, she, Yahweh, whatever, I'm on about a universal creation that is and is all and everything, right? Then it knows, because otherwise it wouldn't be God. So it doesn't matter about the size of the earth or the size of the people on it or the size of the, tiny little flies, right? It doesn't matter. Does that bring it into perspective?
It's a program that they bring in at an earliest age.
It can be used to subdue, yeah.
And that's been used potentially. I mean, some people probably go through the entire world, their entire life, thinking, well, I'm insignificant, even though we probably aren't, and we aren't.
I don't think we're insignificant. I don't. But again, I don't see how that makes any difference on a whether we're on a solar system in the middle of a massive cosmos or whether we're on. It doesn't matter. I mean,
but that's how it's described to us by the powers that be, that we're just a speck of dust. Whereas, and then let's be honest, they all these celebrities and whatever, they're all inverts, which would mean that is also an invert. So we are actually a lot more significant than we think we are. I think that's my opinion.
They do try and make us look insignificant, but what we've got here is Taliesin said he needs to show actual proof of his spinning ball. Well, when he stood on a bleeding garden rake, I think that happened, didn't it? So there we go. They've got the answer to that one. Right, next question.
I mean, again, I could say, well, show me proof of a flat plane, but okay, I'm not going to do that because that's tit for tat, and it's stupid. Look, can I put my book on screen a sec? I know it's a bit of a.
Is this your flat Earth one?
I would never dream of. I'd never dream of plugging your book at all.
Well, stick the slide on. If we can we put the slides back on?
Okay.
I'm gonna give myself a shameless plug here. So there's a reason for it. Okay. Right. Here we go. Right. Ignore. I'm not trying to sell this to people. What I'm saying is, if you have a look at the book cover, right, that will tell you what the content is in there. Now it's quite a volume of, I'm aware that people are not happy with the text size. There's going to be a new edit for people saying, prove that the Earth is a ball. Look, until I'm up there looking down and I've got the equipment to record that, I can't prove shit, right? I can't prove that. What I can do is use common sense, critical thinking, and the information that's presented to me, and I can think and I can put it together and I can use graphics, right? Which is what I've done. And in my book, there is a 20-page chapter that goes into this. So a lot of the slides were taken from my book, but I've edited them down. I've kind of watered them down a lot. But it'll go through, first of all, how the science works, right? Because people say there's no gravity, there's no blah blah blah. Okay, that's fine, but at least read the science section to understand how that would work. And you can disagree with it all you like, don't care, right? Put that together first, then use the examples that I've used in the book to combat what we are being told by the flat Earth stuff, right? And just look at it, just take a look at it. Potentially, I could write a book on this, but I don't want to waste any more time on flat Earth. I think it's a ridiculous, contentious subject, and we should be fighting on. We should be concentrating on other things. But for anybody who is genuinely interested and thinks that I've done a terrible job or whatever, okay, at least give me the benefit of the doubt. Have a read through that chapter. Just have a read through the chapter. You can get it on Kindle. It's half the price, and if you don't like it, fine. Let's agree to disagree. But the arguments that I've made here, to the best of my ability, are in there, fleshed out. Go and take a look at it, or go back through the video, screenshot some of the slides that's full of right. Screenshot that and read it. And if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. Doubt it, but that's fine. That's I'm happy in my knowledge that what I'm saying is correct. I also think that we are dealing with a massive psyop, and I also think that we need to put it behind us, because this has just got to stop. And I think Paul, you would agree with me on this one. The fight is not the shape of the Earth or the size of the Earth. We're dealing with the tyranny.
It doesn't matter what race. Sorry, I cut across you, Paul. Carry on.
I agree with you on that, Nathan. Yeah, I do agree.
Cheers, mate.
It's just like I say, it's just whether we're being described as insignificant and we ain't. That's the thing that bugs me. That's
it
one
bugs
thing
me as well.
Yeah.
And also, I think there's good folk around the world, and it doesn't matter what race, religion, or God knows what you are. We've got a common enemy, and that common enemy is the bloody psychopaths.
Right. Right.
And you step off a plane. I mean, I think it was Johnny Spate who wrote Alf Garnett, and he said, "You step off an aeroplane anywhere." Sorry, can I bring the slide down? Should we
Yeah,
bring the
yeah,
slide down?
I just wanted to, if people want to
I
know where,
understand.
yeah.
And he said, "You step off an aeroplane anywhere in the world, and you'll find an Alf Garnett." And he was right. You would. And I think that I said the other night, you can close your eyes and stick your finger on an atlas, and you go to wherever your finger goes, unless it's in the middle of the ocean, and you'll find good folk, honest folk, nice folk, decent, but they'll have some arsehole of a psycho that's running the country.
Try to step off a
we've got
bus
to-
in
we've got to-
Harlow
That's right. We've got to.
and we'll give you a ticket.
But we got. Oh, by the way, Stig's in. Hey, morning, Stig. He's in New
I'll
Zealand.
have to rewind it.
That's right. Morning, Stig.
Oh, Stig.
And
Good day, Stig.
now, Stephen Trueseeker, there's two questions I've got to answer before we go.
Yeah.
Someone keeps asking, why don't I have Andrew Johnson on? Well, it's all right. I haven't fallen out with Andrew Johnson. I'm good friends with Joe. I know Andrew Johnson, very nice chap. Andrew Johnson is brilliant at lecturing, and he does a lecture type show. I'll do a recorded show with him, but this is more of a, shall we say, to and fro into chat room, and it's more of a kind of variety that we have. And Andrew, he'll come on, and it's not a criticism. He'll start talking about this and that, and he'll go on, and I'll sit there, and nobody in chat will get a word in, nor will I. But he's a brilliant lecturer, and that's what he does as a living. He's a lecturer, so he'll come on, but I think it will be a recorded show. But yeah, I'll get Andrew back on. I think he's good. I'm not sure.
It is a good, yeah.
He's
it's
a
good
bloody
guest.
good bloke. I'm not sure he would come on talking about flat Earth or round Earth, because he's an astronomer, and I don't think he just walks off when it talk about flat Earth. So
Probably,
And
probably
also-
sick of hearing about it, just like I am. It's again, I just find the whole concept ridiculous at this point. So
Stephen Trueseeker says, do a show on UFOs. Well, yes, we could do a show, more Deb's sort of area, I would say. But I personally question whether that is a psyop as well.
interesting.
And that's something we could talk about, whether the UFOs are a psyop. That could be another discussion we could have, because I
Oh.
think there is some evidence. There is unidentified flying objects. Yes, there definitely is, but it's hyped up for a psyop reasons, I think.
Well, I think some of these questions will be out of this world.
Oh,
Sorry.
he's off again. He's doing it again.
Go on. Sorry.
Well, actually, while we're on about like debates and stuff, I mean, Paul, is there anything else that there's always going to be something that we disagree with, and I think that's fine. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, this has been civil and
I think it has.
It's brilliant.
So I'm happy to do a different one on a different subject.
You missed that, didn't you?
I did, yeah. Go on. What was that?
I said buses.
Oh Christ! I mean, if you did, I will argue the point on buses with you, mate, but we're going to lose about 95% of the audience. But yeah, we could do that definitely.
I'm only jesting.
By the way, UFOs, I saw a thing with lights on it the other day. It was going along, and it had wheels on it, and it said 251 bus on the front, and that's a sort of UFO around where I live, because you don't see many buses. Oh, look, you see more UFOs.
I'm going to ask you a question on that, Chris.
Yeah.
Don't people in your neck of the woods know what a bus is? Then they have to actually write it on the side to tell you what it is. Oh, that's a car. Oh, that's a motorbike.
I'll tell you something. When you're on a push bike, one's coming up your arse, you soon know it's a bleeding bus, don't you?
Look, if you're a push on your bike, there you go. What are you complaining about, Chris? These is it I mean, what's the F for if it's a bus? Unidentified, fairly absent objects. I don't know. It's
Well, I don't know why it is. The driver generally shouts out the window. He calls me Richard Head. I don't know why.
That's a common thing in Teesside. You don't even need to be on a bike for that one. You just need to go out your house and somebody's calling you that.
But anyway, thanks for coming on this evening. It's great. I really enjoyed it, because this is what a discussion should be. this is what it is all about. Gentlemanly, polite, everybody, and I think we can. Well, is there anything we disagree about? I don't know, but we
Tons,
could.
but that's healthy to disagree though as well. I mean, why is it a big thing that we're not allowed to disagree? Sod that. Give me something to talk
Democracy,
about.
Isn't that democracy and freedom of speech and
Yeah.
What I don't like using the word humanity. What our lives are all about, discussions, and this is
Yeah.
what they're trying to ban across everywhere, aren't they? That you
Yeah.
can't have a disagreement or.
Yeah.
That's
So
right.
But this is the problem with censorship, isn't it? The idea that they're going to tell us what we can say and what we can believe in and what we think we know, and that's the end of it. I mean, how do we learn unless we make mistakes? I mean, yeah, okay, you can learn without making mistakes, but a lot of the time you learn through mistakes, and a lot of those mistakes are learned through being wrong, right? And well, you know what I mean. But that can come about in discussion and debate and challenging your own beliefs and looking at things that you might not necessarily believe in or agree with at first, but this is what they're trying to shut down. Isn't it our obligation then to do the opposite? Keep it alive, keep it flowing.
By the way, Barefoot Foreigner says, can we see Nathan's book where he talks about this?
Oh, we've done that. But if anyone's
Oh, we just
interested,
done that, yeah.
get in
Oh,
touch.
yeah, we did that, didn't we? That's it.
Yeah.
And because you're going to do, are these lectures still on, by the way?
Well, the one that we've advertised, I personally think it was too short notice. So the way it looks is it's not going ahead, but that doesn't mean to say that we can't do others in the future. So we're going to have a rethink as to how we do that. He's turned into a Bluetooth Viking again. Look at
Sorry.
he's turned into a cyborg.
I like playing my light. Now carry on.
Oh, I can see that. I wouldn't shine that into your eyes because if it's an LED, you've got blue light and it'll keep you stimulated and awake, and it'll damage your retinas and stuff. So yeah, I wouldn't do that too much. But yeah, the talks, even if these don't go ahead, they will be getting. Well, me, Steve, and I will be doing it. It'll be getting recorded and it'll be going online. So whether people turn up for it or not, it will be getting recorded and going ahead that way. But if anyone does want to, book us to come down and do a talk for them, that's me and Steve James. Which is Sixblade in the chat there, and he's a fantastic guy. He's been on here loads of times, so come and book us for you. We'll do talks for you. Come and
excellent.
Bring us to you.
Actually, a UFO hovered outside my bedroom window one night, shining a light into the room, then suddenly shut off. It's a pervert UFO. This is true. Oh look, because let's face it, from alien point of view, around Christmas time, seeing putting stuffing up a Circuit's arse, that must be a little bit confusing for them, mustn't it? Strange earthlings, what are they up to? But
it's strange for the turkey if it's still alive.
We might enjoy it,
Maybe enjoy it. Oh no, speak me to it.
Out of all the creatures on the earth, aren't turkeys bloody ugly? I mean, how do they fancy each other?
That's a bit unfair, Chris.
It is.
Ugly little bastard.
Look at Chris Whitty.
Oh yeah, I suppose he's ugly. Yeah. But
the bottom comment there. That's yeah. I mean, you got to wonder, haven't you?
Great. Are perverts for sure, with all the probing, etc. That's right. Yeah. Probe up your arse, But I actually do think that UFOs are a religion. People worship UFOs like they are a religion. So anyway, thank you very much, gents, for coming on. We're going to have to arrange future programs because I haven't been on the phone to arrange future programs, so I'm going to send the guest list out ASAP. And anything you'd like to say to our audience and everyone? Oh, by the way, before we go, we'll do Deb's toe. She's, she doesn't know whether she's going to be keeping her toe or not, which is quite serious. So, I think we need to sort of have a little bit of a sort of a think about that. Hang on a minute. There we go. And also, oh bloody! I can't speak over it. Here we are. Right, that's it. Chris needs our support. Chris the gardener needs our support because his wife is still okay, still alive, but he's
Okay.
just recently had a bereavement of somebody who's very close to him, and he's really hard. It's really hit him knocked him for six.
Okay.
So if we could all give him some positive thoughts, that's Krista Gardner. He's very, very choked. So he's
So
very.
it's a shame because he's a top bloke, and it's
But his wife's okay.
so
I'll add that his wife is okay. It's not his wife.
Good.
It's somebody else that's close to. I haven't had permission to say who it is.
Yeah.
So I would leave it at that, but it is someone close. So, and Deb's toe. Let's hope when next time she comes on the show, she's not minus a toe. But a wheelie bin dropping on her toe, that's bad, isn't it?
It's a new one, isn't it?
It is.
I've never heard of a wheelie bin being knocked on her toe, no.
It really hurt.
Sorry, what was that?
I said it really hurt. But
It really hurt.
hurt.
It did really hurt, yes.
Oh. You two need to do a comedy sketch together. I think this will be great. Can I just say before we disappear? Listen, Paul. First of all, thanks for coming on, mate. Because
Thanks,
you know
Paul.
what, I think this has been really civil, and we can prove to others that it can be done. We don't have to go at each other with daggers. It's fine. I think you're a top bloke.
You haven't seen the voodoo doll I've got here.
Is that what the pain's for on my side? Right. I get you now. Right, I got you.
And you've got in the side there.
Right. Hold on. I'm just getting my insults out. Right. You're anyway. And again, look, everyone in chat, whether you agree with either of us or not, doesn't matter. Just keep thinking, keep challenging your own beliefs, keep challenging what you think you know, and more important than anything is do the right thing. You'll know. Do the right thing.
That's right.
I'll just leave it there. So thanks to everyone in chat and to Paul and Chris. So
And
cheers.
Paul, anything you'd like to say to anybody?
Yeah,
in
likewise. Thanks for the civilized conversation. It's been good, and much love to everybody. And I guess that's the most important thing out there is love and positivity. That's how we beat these bastards.
I agree.
I like that.
That's
it. That's good.
And also, always remember, whatever happens, have a bloody good laugh and good night. Thank you very much for watching the show. And if you could kindly put the thumbs up, I'd be really grateful. And if you haven't already subscribed, please do. It doesn't cost you anything, and it really helps a lot. And of course, if you're feeling a little bit generous, you could always buy me a coffee. Details are down in the description box. And also, why not pop in to see my Telegram channel, which again is down in the description box, which you can link onto, and Facebook as well. And thank you very much. And either good night, good morning, or good afternoon, wherever you are in the world.